The Force screamed. Across the galaxy, Jedi Masters clutched their temples as a sensation unlike anything in recorded history tore through the invisible web connecting all living things. It wasn't a disturbance. Disturbances were common, predictable ripples caused by death, suffering, or the dark side's machinations. This was an asterisk violation asterisk. Reality itself bent inward at a single point above Coruscant, the Republic's jewel world, as if the universe had forgotten how to exist properly. On the 1287th level of the Jedi Temple, Master Atris stood frozen at the window of the council chamber, her normally composed features twisted in something approaching horror. "What is that?" she whispered, though no one answered. They were all staring at the same impossibility. The sky was asterisk bleeding. A crimson tear had opened in the atmosphere, its edges crackling with energies that made hyperspace radiation look tame by comparison. It wasn't a ship emerging from lightspeed. It wasn't a Sith ritual, though several council members instinctively reached for that explanation. This was something alien to the Force itself, a wound in the fabric of existence that pulsed with an intelligence that felt disturbingly amused by the panic it caused. "The Force is rejecting it," Master Vrook Lamar said slowly, his ancient voice carrying the weight of genuine confusion. "And yet it cannot. Whatever comes through that tear exists outside the Force's influence." "Nothing exists outside the Force," Atris countered, but her conviction wavered as the tear widened. Then he emerged. ANOS Voldigoad descended from the crimson wound in reality with the casual grace of someone stepping off a staircase, not plummeting from the upper atmosphere. His black uniform, archaic, elegant, utterly foreign to Republic fashion, didn't so much as flutter in the screaming winds that accompanied his arrival. Crimson eyes surveyed Coruscant's endless cityscape with mild interest, taking in the speeder traffic that had ground to a halt, the holoscreens displaying his image across 1,000 districts, the Jedi Temple that dominated the horizon. "Interesting," ANOS said to himself, his voice carrying a resonance that made nearby windows vibrate. "This world's magical structure is interconnected, crude but pervasive." He didn't fall. He simply remained suspended 3,000 meters above the Senate district, arms crossed, as if gravity had politely asked permission before affecting him and been denied. The crimson tear sealed behind him with a sound like reality sighing in relief, but the damage was done. Every Force-sensitive being on Coruscant, and there were thousands, had felt his arrival like a hammer blow to their perception. In the underlevels, a dark Jedi hiding from Republic justice vomited from the sheer asterisk pressure of ANOS's presence. In the temple, 3 Padawans fainted simultaneously, and in a meditation chamber deep within the structure, an ancient Jedi master named Vandar opened his eyes for the first time in 6 months and said simply, "The prophecies were incomplete." ANOS tilted his head, and in that moment he perceived the Force. To him, it appeared as golden and crimson threads weaving through every living thing, connecting them in a vast tapestry of cause and effect, emotion and intention. It was elegant in its complexity, remarkably similar to the magical formulae of his own world, yet fundamentally different in application. Where magic was individual power drawn from within and shaped by will, this Force was collective, environmental, a living energy field that bound the galaxy together. "Fascinating," ANOS murmured. "A universe where power is democratic rather than hierarchical, where even the weakest being contributes to the whole." His lips curved in something that might have been a smile. "No wonder they're so weak. They've forgotten that true strength begins with the individual." He descended then, not in a rush, but in a measured fall that brought him to the temple's landing platform precisely 60 seconds after his arrival. His boots touched durasteel with a crack that spiderwebbed the reinforced surface, not from impact, but from the sheer concentration of power in his physical form, adjusting to this reality's laws. 20 Jedi Knights were already assembled, lightsabers ignited in a defensive perimeter. Republic soldiers had taken position behind portable shields, their blaster rifles trained on the intruder. Somewhere overhead, a Republic attack gunship circled, its weapons hot but holding fire. "Identify yourself," demanded the lead Jedi, a Zabrak woman whose yellow skin markings pulsed with tension. Her green lightsaber hummed with barely restrained aggression. "You have violated Republic airspace and triggered emergency protocols across 3 sectors. Surrender and submit to questioning, or..." ANOS interrupted politely, his crimson eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her next words die in her throat. "You'll attack. Please, don't let me stop you. I'm curious how this galaxy's warriors measure their strength." The Zabrak Jedi's jaw clenched. She could feel something wrong about this man, if he was a man at all. The Force recoiled from him like oil from water, yet simultaneously tried to flow toward him as if recognizing a void that demanded to be filled. It was paradoxical, impossible, and deeply unsettling. "Master Kavar is en route," she said instead, choosing diplomacy over confrontation. "He will want to speak with you regarding..." "Your masters sensed my arrival," ANOS said, not as a question but as a statement of fact. "Good. I have questions about this universe's power structure." He glanced around the assembled force with mild disappointment. "Though I expected a more impressive welcoming committee. In my world, 20 warriors of your caliber wouldn't warrant a second glance." It wasn't boasting. His tone carried the simple certainty of someone stating that water was wet. The soldiers shifted uncomfortably. Several Jedi Knights exchanged glances, their combat precognition screaming warnings that made no tactical sense. This man stood alone, unarmed except for what appeared to be a decorative sword at his hip, surrounded by some of the Republic's finest defenders. By every measure, he should be the one at a disadvantage. Yet every instinct honed by years of training told them the opposite was true. "Stand down," a new voice commanded, and the assembled Jedi immediately deactivated their lightsabers. Master Kavar strode onto the platform, his brown robes billowing behind him, his weathered face set in an expression of cautious diplomacy. Behind him walked 3 more council members, Masters Zezkai El, Vrook Lamar, and Atris herself. The show of force was deliberate. 4 Jedi Masters, each a legendary warrior and philosopher in their own right, conveying both respect for the potential threat and confidence in their ability to handle it. ANOS regarded them with considerably more interest than the Knights. "Better," he acknowledged. "You 4 have seen genuine battle. Your strength is modest but refined." "Modest," Vrook repeated, his tone dry as Tatooine sand. "How generous." Kavar raised a hand, forestalling his colleague's irritation. "I am Kavar, Master of the Jedi Order. We sensed your arrival through the Force, a presence unlike anything in our records. You are not from this galaxy." "Correct," ANOS said simply. "I am ANOS Voldigoad. Where I come from, I was known as the Demon King of Tyranny." He paused, considering. "Though I've been working on my reputation, tyranny has such negative connotations." The name meant nothing to them, but the title sparked immediate alarm. Atris's hand drifted toward her lightsaber. "Demon King, you claim rulership through fear and oppression." "I claimed rulership through being stronger than everyone else," ANOS corrected mildly. "The tyranny part was more about my methods. I tend to destroy anyone who threatens peace. Permanently. It's quite effective." "The dark side," Zezkael breathed, his scarred face grim. "You wield the dark side without corruption. How is that possible?" ANOS tilted his head, genuinely curious now. "Dark side? Is that what you call destructive power in this universe?" He raised his hand, and between his fingers, space itself began to crack. Not metaphorically, reality literally fractured like glass, revealing a void of absolute nothingness beneath. The temperature on the platform dropped 15 degrees instantly. Every Jedi's lightsaber ignited simultaneously in pure reflex. ANOS closed his fist and reality healed itself as if it had never been damaged. Interesting. Your force tried to prevent that. It has defensive properties, a will toward preservation. His smile widened slightly. It won't work. My power doesn't ask permission from universal laws. Impossible, Atris whispered. The Force binds all things. Nothing can exist in defiance of it. Your Force is a fascinating phenomenon, ANOS replied, completely unbothered by the dozen lightsabers now pointed at him. But it's not absolute. Nothing is, except perhaps my own magical principles. He looked directly at Kavar. You mentioned wanting to speak. I accept. I have questions about this galaxy, and you seem intelligent enough to provide useful answers. The sheer audacity of it. A single being, freshly arrived and surrounded by Jedi Masters, dictating terms as if he held all the leverage, should have been insulting. Instead, Kavar found himself nodding. The council chamber, he said quietly. We will speak there. As ANOS walked forward, the assembled Jedi parted like water around a stone. Not from courtesy, but because something primal in their hindbrain screamed that standing in his path would be catastrophic. Master Vrook watched the stranger pass, his ancient eyes narrowed in calculation. He's not Sith, Vrook murmured to Atris. Sith we understand, this is something else entirely. Yes, Atris agreed, her voice tight with controlled fear. Something worse. He looked at our lightsabers the way we might look at children playing with training sabers. In the council chamber, ANOS took the center position without being invited, standing where typically only those being judged would stand. The masters arranged themselves in their traditional seats, but the usual authority of the setup felt hollow. ANOS's presence dominated the room despite being outnumbered 12-1. Let's begin simply, Kavar said, employing the diplomatic skills that had ended a dozen conflicts. Why are you here, ANOS Voldigoad? I'm not certain, ANOS admitted freely. There was a distortion in my world's magical structure, a tear in dimensional space. I investigated and found myself pulled through. He glanced around the chamber. This place called to me specifically. Something about your force resonated with an ancient ritual I encountered recently. Master Vandar, hovering in his council seat, spoke for the first time, his small form radiating intensity. The Force does not randomly pull beings from other dimensions. If you are here, it is because the Force wills it. ANOS's expression became thoughtful. An interesting philosophy. Determinism disguised as mysticism. Tell me, small master, if your Force wills all things, do you have any choice in your actions? Or are you simply puppets dancing on cosmic strings? The question struck at the heart of Jedi philosophy, and several masters shifted uncomfortably. The Force guides, Vandar replied carefully. It does not compel. We choose our path, but the Force reveals the consequences. So it's precognitive probability analysis, ANOS translated. Useful but limiting. What happens when you encounter something your Force cannot predict? He smiled, and there was something sharp in it. Something like me. Master Kavar leaned forward. You claim to have destroyed and recreated things in your own world. What exactly did you destroy? Logic itself on one memorable occasion, ANOS said casually. Also several gods, the concept of fate, and approximately 3/4 of my world's demon population when they refused to accept peace. He paused. They got better eventually. Mostly. The silence that followed was profound. You're joking, Atris said flatly. ANOS's expression didn't change. I rarely joke about my accomplishments. It's considered poor form. He withdrew the sword at his hip, Venas Denoa, and held it up. The blade seemed to drink in the chamber's light, its surface a black so absolute it appeared as a wound in space. Every Jedi in the room felt it simultaneously. A weapon that shouldn't exist asterisk. Not dark side, not light side, but something orthogonal to the Force entirely. A sword that cut through the very concept of defense, that destroyed not just matter but reason itself. This is Venus de Noa, ANOS explained, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. It was forged from my own destructive power to kill gods and destroy reason. No matter how tough, how eternal, or how infinite, Venus de Noa turns it to ash. He sheathed the blade. I mention this not as a threat but as context. In my world I was supreme. Here I'm merely curious. Master Zezkai-El, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. What do you want from us, Demon King? Information, ANOS replied immediately. I want to understand this galaxy's power structure. Your Jedi Order, your Republic, your enemies. I want to know if this force of yours is truly as pervasive as it appears, or if there are those who have transcended it. His crimson eyes swept across the council. And I want to know if any of you are strong enough to be worth teaching. Teaching? Vrook barked a laugh. You presume to teach the Jedi. I presume nothing, ANOS said mildly. Either you're teachable or you're not. But in my experience, those who claim mastery are usually the ones most in need of education. He turned to Kavar. You fought a war recently. I can see it in your stance, the way you calculate angles and threats even now. Tell me about your enemies. Kavar hesitated, then made a decision. The Jedi Civil War ended 2 years ago. Darth Revan and Darth Malak nearly destroyed the Republic before Revan was redeemed and Malak fell. But the Sith teachings remain, scattered across the galaxy in hidden academies and ancient tombs. Sith, ANOS repeated, tasting the word. The practitioners of your dark side, and they opposed your Jedi because they seek power without restraint, Atris interjected sharply. They embrace passion, hatred, and domination, everything the Jedi Code stands against. ANOS considered this. So you have warriors who prize peace and restraint, opposed by warriors who prize power and passion, both sides claiming to understand this force better than the other. He shook his head slowly. In my world, we had a similar divide. It nearly destroyed everything until I proved that the dichotomy was false. False? Master Vandar's ears twitched with interest despite his caution. Strength without compassion is tyranny, ANOS said simply. But compassion without strength is worthless. You cannot protect anyone if you're too weak to stand against those who would harm them. True power requires both. He looked at each master in turn. Your Jedi have compassion but deny their strength. Your Sith have strength but deny their compassion. Both incomplete. Both ultimately weak. The words should have been insulting. Instead, they hung in the air with the weight of uncomfortable truth. Careful, stranger, Vrook warned. You speak of concepts you don't understand. The Force is not so simple as... The ancient master's words cut off as ANOS raised a single finger, and Vrook's chair lifted 3 feet off the ground. No hand gestures, no visible effort, no connection to the Force that the other Jedi could sense. Simply pure telekinetic will made manifest. I understand power, ANOS said quietly, lowering the chair gently. And I understand that you're afraid. Not of me attacking you, you know how to respond to that. You're afraid because I make your understanding of the universe feel inadequate. He smiled, and for the first time there was genuine warmth in it. Good. Fear of inadequacy is the first step toward growth. Master Kavar stood slowly. The council must deliberate. You will be given quarters in the temple while we decide how to proceed. Will I be monitored? ANOS asked, amused. Extensively, Atris confirmed coldly. Excellent, I look forward to meeting your best stealth operatives. In my world, assassination attempts were how I stayed sharp. ANOS moved toward the chamber exit, then paused. One more thing. You mentioned that your Sith still lurk in the shadows. Where might I find them? The question sent alarm through the assembled masters. Why? Kavar demanded. ANOS glanced back, his crimson eyes gleaming with something that might have been anticipation. Because if your light side is incomplete, I should evaluate your dark side as well. How else can I properly judge this galaxy's potential? He left the council chamber in stunned silence, escorted by a dozen nervous Jedi Knights who kept their hands near their lightsabers and their minds open to the Force, watching for any sign of hostile intent. They found none because ANOS had none. He was simply, genuinely curious about this new universe he'd been thrust into, and if his presence terrified the most powerful Force users in the known galaxy, well, that was hardly his fault. In the council chamber, Master Vandar spoke into the heavy silence. We must contact any remaining members of the old council, and we must warn the Republic Senate. Whatever that being is, he represents a threat to the entire galaxy's balance. Or an opportunity, Kavar said thoughtfully, earning shocked looks from his colleagues. Did you not sense it? He wasn't lying, not once. Everything he said he believed to be true, and if even half his claims are accurate, he trailed off troubled. Then we face a being who could destroy the Force itself, Atris finished grimly. We must be prepared to stop him. High above Coruscant, in the silent depths of space, a dark presence stirred. Darth Traya, the Lord of Betrayal, felt the disturbance through the Force and smiled behind her mask. She had sensed the stranger's arrival, felt the way reality bent around his existence. So, she whispered to the void, the Force brings me a weapon to end the Force itself. How deliciously ironic. The Demon King had descended into the Star Wars galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. The quarters they provided ANOS were luxurious by Republic standards, a spacious chamber in the temple's guest wing, overlooking Coruscant's endless cityscape through floor-to-ceiling transparent steel windows. Meditation cushions, a sleeping platform with Alderaanian silk sheets, a private refresher, even a small library alcove containing basic texts on Jedi philosophy. ANOS ignored all of it and spent his first hour studying the city itself. 3,000 levels of civilization stacked atop one another, each layer a complete ecosystem of commerce, crime, culture, and chaos. Billions of beings from thousands of species, all interconnected through technology and this pervasive force that flowed through them like invisible rivers. The architecture was impressive, brutalist yet elegant, function married to form in ways his own world's demon cities had rarely achieved. But what fascinated him most was how asterisk-weak it all felt. In his world, cities were protected by layered barrier spells, dimensional wards, and mage towers capable of obliterating armies. Here, the Republic relied on ships, soldiers, and the Jedi themselves, competent enough, certainly, but fundamentally limited by their unwillingness to embrace true power. They had constrained themselves with philosophy, hobbled their potential with fear of the very strength that could protect them. Watching the city won't reveal its secrets, a voice said from the doorway. ANOS turned to find a young human woman in Jedi robes standing at the threshold, her hand resting casually on the lightsaber at her belt. She was perhaps 20 standard years, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and sharp, intelligent eyes that assessed him without the fearful caution the masters had shown. Interesting, ANOS said. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? She stepped inside without invitation, the door hissing shut behind her. I'm Mitra Surik. The council sent me to observe you. Her lips quirked. Though I suspect they chose me because I'm expendable if you turn hostile. Honest, ANOS noted approvingly. That's rare in organizations built on rigid hierarchies. He gestured to the meditation cushions. Sit. Tell me why you're not expendable. Mitra hesitated, then complied, settling into a cross-legged position with the ease of long practice. I'm a Jedi Knight, fought in the Mandalorian Wars under Revan before the Council exiled me for it. Just returned from the Outer Rim. She studied him openly. You don't feel like anything I've encountered. Not Sith, not Jedi, not even the strange Force phenomena I've seen in the unknown regions. What are you? A reincarnated Demon King trying to build a peaceful world, ANOS replied, sitting opposite her with perfect posture. In my universe, I destroyed everything that threatened harmony, then died and came back 2,000 years later to fix what had broken in my absence. He tilted his head. You fought in a war your order forbade. Why? Because people were dying, Mitra said simply. The Mandalorians were slaughtering Republic citizens, and the Council said to wait, to meditate, to trust in the Force's will. I couldn't do that. Neither could Revan or Malak. And look how that turned out. A new voice interjected coldly. Master Atris entered the chamber flanked by 2 Jedi Knights, her expression carved from ice. Your decision to follow Revan led directly to the Jedi Civil War. Thousands of Jedi fell to the dark side. Millions died in the resulting conflict, all because you lacked the discipline to trust the Council's wisdom. ANOS watched the exchange with interest. So your order punishes those who act to save lives, then blames them when others fall to corruption. Fascinating logic. Atris's gaze snapped to him. You understand nothing of our ways. I understand hypocrisy, ANOS countered mildly. Your council claims to serve the Force's will, yet when that will is unclear, you freeze in indecision and call it wisdom. Meanwhile, people died. He stood, and despite Atris's considerable presence, somehow made her seem small. In my world, I had advisors who tried similar arguments. They're no longer advisors. Is that a threat? Atris's hand moved to her lightsaber. It's a statement of fact, ANOS corrected. I have no interest in threatening those too weak to be worth the effort. His crimson eyes met hers without malice, only honest assessment. You're powerful for this galaxy, Master Atris. Your command of your force is refined, your will is iron. But you've let doctrine calcify your thinking. You see the world in absolutes, light and dark, order and chaos, discipline and passion. Reality doesn't work that way. The Force asterisk is asterisk absolute, Atris insisted. There is the light side and the dark side. Those who embrace passion and power fall to darkness. This is not philosophy, it is observed, repeated truth. ANOS considered this, then extended his hand. Between his fingers, crimson energy crackled, raw destructive power that made the air itself recoil. Every Jedi in the room ignited their lightsabers reflexively. This is my destructive magic, ANOS explained calmly, pure annihilation given form. By your definition, it should be dark side energy, fueled by power, capable of immense destruction. The crimson energy intensified until the room's temperature spiked. Yet I've used this power to protect millions, to destroy tyrants and gods who threaten peace, to end wars before they could begin. He closed his fist, extinguishing the energy. Power is not inherently corrupting. What corrupts is asterisk why you seek power and how you use it. If you seek power for domination, you become a tyrant. If you seek power to protect, you become a guardian. He looked at each Jedi in turn. Your order's mistake is believing that denying power somehow makes you virtuous. It doesn't. It just makes you weak. Strength isn't everything, Mitra interjected quietly, earning a sharp glance from Atris. I've seen powerful Sith brought down by compassion they never understood, seen weak beings accomplish what armies couldn't through courage and connection. Agreed, ANOS said, surprising them both. Which is why I said you need both asterisk. Compassion without strength is worthless because you cannot protect what you love. Strength without compassion is tyranny because power without purpose destroys everything. He sat back down, his posture relaxed despite the tension in the room. Your Revan understood this, didn't he? That's why your council fears his memory. Atris's expression hardened further, which ANOS hadn't thought possible. Revan fell to the dark side. He became everything the Jedi stand against. Did he, ANOS asked genuinely, or did he do what was necessary and your order couldn't comprehend operating outside their binary worldview? He turned to Mitra. You knew him. Did Revan seek power for its own sake? Or did he seek power to end the threat facing your republic? Mitra's jaw tightened. He changed. The war changed him. But initially, yes, he wanted to save the republic by any means necessary. Any means necessary, ANOS repeated thoughtfully. In my world, I destroyed those words, because any means implies you've lost sight of your purpose and embraced cruelty for convenience. He met Atris's gaze directly. But necessary means is different. Sometimes protecting peace requires violence. Sometimes saving lives requires taking them. The question is whether you remain committed to your purpose, or whether the violence becomes the purpose itself. Philosophy from a self-proclaimed tyrant, Atris said with acid skepticism. How ironic. I was called the Demon King of Tyranny because I didn't ask permission before destroying threats, ANOS clarified patiently. I didn't negotiate with those who slaughtered innocents. I didn't form committees to debate whether genocide was bad enough to warrant intervention. I simply acted, overwhelmingly and decisively, to end conflicts before they could spread. His expression became distant with memory. My subjects called it tyranny because I gave them no choice but peace. Their alternative was annihilation. That's not peace, one of the Jedi Knights objected. That's enforced order through fear. Is it? ANOS challenged. After I unified the demons, humans, spirits, and gods of my world, they lived in genuine harmony for 1,000 years. No wars, no genocides, no endless cycles of revenge. Was that peace false simply because I created it through strength? The question hung in the air, unanswerable and uncomfortable. Master Kavar entered then, his weathered face troubled. Master Atris, a word. The two Jedi Masters stepped into the corridor, leaving Mitra and the Knights with ANOS. In the hallway, Kavar spoke quietly but urgently. The Council has reviewed his arrival. Master Vandar performed a deep meditation. His conclusion is disturbing. More disturbing than a being who can crack reality like glass, Atris asked dryly. He believes ANOS Voldigoad is a wound in the Force, Kavar said carefully. Not a wound that drains it, like Darth Nihilus, but a wound that rejects asterisk it. The Force cannot predict him, cannot influence him, cannot even properly perceive him. And that makes him perhaps the most dangerous being to enter our galaxy since Revan, Atris finished bitterly. Another impossibility that shattered our understanding of the Force. She glanced back toward ANOS's quarters. What does Vandar recommend? Observation, Kavar said, and testing. We need to understand his limitations, his intentions, his philosophy. If he truly seeks knowledge rather than conquest, perhaps we can guide him toward the light. And if he cannot be guided? Kavar's silence was answer enough. Back in the quarters, ANOS had begun questioning Mitra about the Mandalorian Wars, listening with genuine interest as she described the conflict's progression, Revan's strategies, and the ultimate revelation of the Sith Empire that had manipulated events from the shadows. So your Revan discovered a greater threat, ANOS summarized. Returned with an army to prepare your republic for it, but your people perceived his methods as invasion rather than preparation. The Council believes he fell to the dark side completely, Mitra said carefully. That whatever his initial intentions, the power of the Star Forge corrupted him absolutely. This Star Forge, an ancient space station that manufactures unlimited ships and weapons. Yes, powered by the dark side itself, feeding on death and destruction to grow stronger. ANOS's expression became thoughtful, interesting. A self-perpetuating war machine tied to destructive emotion. In my world, we had similar artifacts, demon swords that grew stronger through bloodshed, magical constructs that fed on fear. He leaned forward. They all had the same fundamental flaw. Which was? They assumed power could only come from negative emotion. That strength required hatred, fear, or ambition. His crimson eyes gleamed. I destroyed that assumption, literally. Used my own power to prove that true strength transcends emotional state, that a being sufficiently powerful doesn't need asterisk to draw from anything external. You're saying Revan could have resisted the Star Forge's corruption if he was stronger. I'm saying your galaxy has created a system where power requires asterisk corruption because you've defined it that way. Your light side forbids passion and attachment, making its practitioners hesitant and weak. Your dark side embraces passion without restraint, leading to self-destruction and tyranny. ANOS stood, packing to the window. Both sides have trapped themselves in a false dichotomy. Neither understands that true power comes from transcending the binary entirely. The door opened again. Master Kavar entered alone this time, dismissing the Jedi Knights with a gesture. Mitra moved to leave as well, but Kavar stopped her. "Stay, Mitra. Your unique perspective may be valuable." He settled onto a meditation cushion with a soft grunt, old war wounds making themselves known. "ANOS Voldigoad, the Council has decided to offer you a proposal." "I'm listening," ANOS said, returning to his seat. "You claim to seek knowledge of our galaxy. We can provide that knowledge, full access to the Jedi archives, introductions to Republic officials, even accompaniment to various worlds to observe different Force traditions." Kavar's voice remained diplomatic, but his eyes were calculating. "In exchange, we ask that you submit to observation and testing. Allow us to understand your abilities, your limitations, your intentions." "You want to find a way to kill me if necessary," ANOS translated bluntly. Kavar didn't flinch. "We want to understand you. Whether that understanding reveals friend or foe remains to be seen." ANOS smiled, and there was genuine appreciation in it. Honest negotiation. "I respect that." He stood, and suddenly the room felt smaller, as if his presence expanded to fill every corner. "I accept your proposal with modifications. You may observe me, test me, question me as you wish. I'll answer honestly because deception wastes everyone's time." "And your modifications?" Kavar asked warily. "First, your tests must be genuine. If you attempt to fight me, fight with full strength. Don't insult me with holding back." ANOS's voice carried absolute certainty. "Second, I require freedom of movement. If I wish to visit your Senate, your military installations, or even your hidden Sith academies, you will not prevent me." "Impossible," Kavar said flatly. "We cannot give you unrestricted access to." "You cannot prevent me from accessing anything," ANOS interrupted gently. "I'm offering you the courtesy of accompaniment so you can understand my intentions. The alternative is I simply go where I please and you scramble to respond." He tilted his head. "Which do you prefer?" The sheer confidence wasn't arrogance. It was mathematical certainty. Kavar could feel it in his bones, in his connection to the Force that screamed warnings about this being's capability. "Third modification?" Kavar asked, knowing he'd already lost this negotiation. "I want to meet your Sith," ANOS said simply. "Not to join them, not to fight them, yet simply to understand them. Your light side is incomplete. I need to see if your dark side offers any wisdom you've missed." His expression became serious. "And fourth, if any of your Jedi show genuine potential, I want permission to train them in my methods." "Absolutely not," Kavar said immediately. "We will not allow you to corrupt." "Corruption assumes I have something to gain from their fall," ANOS interrupted. "I don't, but I can see potential in some of your people, this Mitra, for instance, that your order is wasting through overcaution and rigid doctrine." He looked at the Jedi Knight directly. "You've touched both light and dark, haven't you? Felt the pull of both sides and chosen your own path between them." Mitra's expression shuddered. "I don't know what you mean." "Liar," ANOS said without judgment. "You've survived encounters that should have consumed you, walked through dark side strongholds without falling. That's not because you're purely light side, it's because you've internalized that the dichotomy is false. You operate on instinct rather than doctrine." He smiled. "In my world, you'd have been a natural demon noble. Here, your order probably considers you dangerous." The accuracy of the assessment made Mitra flinch. The Council did watch her carefully, uncertain whether her survival of so much darkness indicated strength or latent corruption. Kavar stood slowly. "The Council must discuss your modifications. But understand this, ANOS Voldigoad. We have faced Sith Lords who could drain entire planets, ancient evils that predated the Republic itself, even wounds in the Force that consumed everything they touched. We have survived all of them." I'm sure you have, ANOS acknowledged, and I respect your order's resilience, but survival isn't the same as thriving and resilience isn't the same as strength. He moved to the window, looking out over Coruscant's endless sprawl. I've seen this pattern before. Organizations that survive by avoiding challenges rather than overcoming them. They endure, yes, but they never grow, never evolve. The Jedi have endured for 25,000 years, Kavar said with quiet pride. And in those 25,000 years, have you grown stronger? Or have you simply refined your methods of maintaining the status quo? ANOS glanced back. From what Mitra has told me, your greatest threat came from within, former Jedi who rejected your teachings and embraced power without restraint. That's not coincidence. That's a system that creates its own opposition through excessive rigidity. The observation struck uncomfortably close to truth. The Sith had originated as dark Jedi, after all, fallen members of the Order who refused to accept its limitations. The cycle had repeated across millennia. I'll present your terms to the Council, Kavar said finally. But know this, if you prove to be a threat to the Republic or the galaxy at large, the Jedi will stand against you, regardless of the cost. Good, ANOS said, and he meant it. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. Threats should be faced, not negotiated with. He turned back to face the Master fully. But I'm not your enemy, Kavar. I'm simply something your framework doesn't accommodate. That makes me incomprehensible, not hostile. After Kavar left, Mitra remained, her expression troubled. You shouldn't have mentioned Revan. The Council is still sensitive about what happened. Then they haven't learned from it, ANOS replied. In my world, I made countless mistakes during my reign. Killed people who might have been redeemed, missed opportunities for peace, let arrogance blind me to genuine threats. He met her eyes directly. The difference between wisdom and foolishness isn't whether you make mistakes, it's whether you acknowledge them and adapt. The Council believes acknowledging Revan's complexity would undermine the distinction between light and dark. Then your Council prioritizes dogma over truth, ANOS said bluntly. That's how organizations die, not from external threats but from internal calcification. He moved to the door, paused. You fought in your war because you saw people dying and chose action over doctrine. That took genuine courage. Don't let your order convince you it was weakness. Mitra stood slowly. Why do you care? You just arrived. Our politics, our conflicts, they're not your concern. ANOS smiled, and for a moment the demon king of tyranny looked almost gentle. Because I've built peace before and I know how fragile it is. How easily fear and dogma can shatter even the strongest foundations. His voice softened. And because potential wasted is tragedy, regardless of which universe it occurs in. He left her there, processing words that contradicted everything the Council had taught her about power, purpose, and the nature of the Force itself. That night, Master Vandar called an emergency council session. All available masters assembled, their expressions grave as Kavar relayed ANOS's terms. Unacceptable, Master Vrook declared immediately. We cannot give him unrestricted access. He could compromise Republic security, steal sensitive information, even make contact with Sith remnants. He will make contact with Sith remnants regardless, Master Zezkai El countered. At least if we accompany him, we maintain observation. You speak as if we could stop him, Atra said bitterly. She had spent the past hours reviewing every scrap of information about their visitor, trying to find weaknesses, limitations, some way to counter his apparent invincibility. She'd found nothing. His demonstration earlier, cracking reality itself, that wasn't even his full power. I could feel it. He was showing us a parlor trick. The Force itself cannot perceive him clearly, Vandar added, his small form seeming even more fragile in the council chamber's dim light. I have meditated deeply on his presence. Where others appear as bright presences in the Force, he is absence. Not darkness, not a void, simply otherness asterisk. As if the Force recognizes he operates by entirely different rules. Then we seal the temple, another master suggested. Activate the ancient wards, contact Republic Military Command, coordinate a what? Kavar interrupted. A military response against a being who descended from orbit without a ship and cracked reality with a gesture. How exactly do you propose we contain him? The silence was damning. Finally, Master Vandar spoke. We accept his terms. We observe, we learn, we attempt to guide him toward the light. And, he hesitated, ancient reluctance warring with pragmatic wisdom. We consider that perhaps his perspective, while alien to our understanding, may contain truth we have missed. You cannot be serious, Atris hissed. He advocates for embracing power without restraint. That's the path to the dark side. He advocates for embracing power with purpose asterisk, Kavar corrected carefully. There's a distinction, and given that our current system has produced an endless cycle of Jedi falling to the dark side, perhaps examining alternative philosophies is warranted. This is how it begins, Atris said, her voice cold with certainty. This is how orders fall. First comes curiosity, then comes compromise, then comes corruption. We've seen it 1,000 times. And we've seen rigid orthodoxy produce brittle systems that shatter under pressure just as often, Kavar countered. Balance, Atris. In all things, balance. The vote was called. 7 masters voted to accept ANOS's terms with observation protocols. 3 voted for containment attempts. 2 abstained. The decision was made. In his quarters, ANOS felt the Council's decision through the ripples in the Force, that fascinating energy field that tried so hard to encompass him and failed so completely. He smiled. They'd chosen curiosity over fear, at least for now. Good, fear he could work with, but curiosity offered opportunities for genuine learning. He looked out over Coruscant's glittering nightscape, this capital of a republic spanning thousands of worlds, and wondered what his old friends would think of this new galaxy. Misay would love the diversity of species and cultures. Sasha would immediately start categorizing Force abilities and finding combat applications. Rey would probably challenge the entire Jedi Council to a tournament. But he was alone here, the Demon King in a galaxy that didn't know what to do with him. Which meant he was free to teach them what true power looked like, and what it should be used for. Tomorrow, the real evaluation would begin. The testing began at dawn, or what passed for dawn on a planet where the sun was barely visible through atmospheric haze and endless layers of construction. Master Kavar led ANOS to a sealed training chamber deep within the temple, a massive circular arena with walls reinforced by ancient Force techniques and modern durasteel plating. Observation galleries ringed the upper levels, already filled with Jedi Knights and Masters. Even Council members had come to witness this unprecedented evaluation. We've arranged a series of challenges, Kavar explained, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. Combat simulations, Force resistance tests, tactical problem-solving scenarios, each designed to help us understand your capabilities and limitations. ANOS stood in the arena's center, arms crossed, examining the assembled observers with mild interest. And if I have no limitations that your tests can reveal, then we'll know that too, Kavar replied diplomatically. The first challenge was straightforward: combat remotes. 20 spherical droids descended from the ceiling, each equipped with multiple stun blasters calibrated to test reflexes and defensive capabilities. Standard Jedi training equipment, though rarely deployed in such numbers simultaneously. They opened fire. ANOS didn't move. The blaster bolts, brilliant blue streaks of stunning energy, simply stopped 3 feet from his body, suspended in midair as if hitting an invisible barrier. Except there was no barrier, no visible Force technique, no energy signature the observing Jedi could detect. The bolts just stopped. Interesting projectiles, ANOS commented, watching the suspended energy with academic curiosity. Contained plasma given directional velocity, elegant but limited. He gestured casually, and all 20 bolts reversed direction instantly, striking their source remotes with perfect precision. The droids sparked and fell, disabled in under 2 seconds. In the observation gallery, Master Vrook leaned toward Atris. "Did you sense any force technique? Any channeling of energy?" "Nothing," Atris admitted, her expression troubled. It was as if the universe simply agreed with him that the bolts shouldn't proceed further. The next test escalated. 4 Jedi Knights entered the arena, lightsabers ignited in the defensive Sorsu form. They were instructed to attack with full intensity, not to kill, but to genuinely test ANOS's combat capabilities. Finally, ANOS said, genuine anticipation in his voice, "Real warriors." The knights moved with the supernatural grace of force-enhanced combatants, their strikes coordinated through battle meditation, their movements flowing like water. Blue and green lightsaber blades wove patterns of light designed to overwhelm even master duelists. ANOS dodged every strike without apparent effort, his movements minimal, economical, precise. He didn't use the Force, at least not in any way the observing Jedi recognized, but somehow anticipated every angle, every feint, every combination before it materialized. "You're holding back," he observed, ducking under a horizontal slash that would have decapitated a normal opponent. "Fear of hurting me, or fear of what I'll do if genuinely threatened." "We don't seek to harm you," one knight gasped, pressing the attack despite the futility becoming increasingly apparent. "That's your problem," ANOS said and moved. What happened next would be debated in Jedi training halls for years afterward. ANOS didn't draw a weapon, didn't use visible force techniques, didn't even strike his opponents. He simply touched each knight once, a palm against their shoulder, their arm, their chest, and their lightsabers deactivated. Not through mechanical failure or force manipulation of the weapon itself, but because the knight's connection to the Force suddenly muted. They stumbled back, gasping, feeling as if a fundamental sense had been temporarily severed. What did you do?" one knight demanded, trying and failing to reignite his lightsaber through Force activation. "I interrupted your connection to this galaxy's energy field," ANOS explained clinically. "Temporarily. It'll return in a few minutes." He looked up at the observation galleries. "Your Force is permeable. It flows through you, which means it can be blocked, redirected, or disrupted by someone who understands its structure." In the council section, Master Vandar exchanged troubled glances with his colleagues. The ability to sever Force connections existed. They'd seen it in Darth Nihilus, the wound in the Force that consumed life itself. But this was different. Surgical, temporary, done without drawing on the dark side or causing permanent damage. "How?" Kavar called down from the gallery. "How do you perceive the Force clearly enough to manipulate individual connections?" ANOS tilted his head, considering how to explain. "In my world, I learned to perceive the fundamental magical structure underlying reality. Everything, matter, energy, life, thought, is built on principles that can be understood and manipulated if you know where to look." He gestured around the arena. "Your Force is simply this universe's magical structure made manifest. It's more elegant than my world's systems in some ways, cruder in others, but ultimately it follows rules. And anything with rules can be comprehended." "The Force is not a set of rules to be mastered," Master Atris called out sharply. "It is a living energy field, conscious and willful. It guides the galaxy toward balance." "Does it?" ANOS asked genuinely. "Then why does your galaxy experience endless cycles of war? Why do your Jedi and Sith perpetually conflict without resolution? If your Force actively guides toward balance, it's doing a poor job." He looked directly at her. "Unless the conflict is asterisk the balance it seeks, light and dark in eternal opposition, neither allowed to truly triumph, a cosmic stalemate masquerading as wisdom." The observation fell into uncomfortable silence. The testing continued for hours. They subjected ANOS to Force lightning, which he absorbed without visible effort, then released harmlessly into the ground. They attempted telepathic intrusion, and found his mind an impenetrable fortress that made even Master Vandar's legendary mental defenses seem porous by comparison. They tried telekinetic restraint, using 5 masters working in concert to generate crushing pressure. ANOS stood unaffected, as if the combined might of 5 Jedi Council members was a gentle breeze. "Enough," Kavar finally called, his voice heavy with resignation. "We've learned what we needed to know." "Have you?" ANOS asked as the masters descended to the arena floor. "What exactly have you learned?" "That you're beyond our ability to contain through force techniques alone," Master Zezkai El said bluntly. "That your power operates on principles orthogonal to everything in our experience. That you could destroy this temple and everyone in it if you chose, and we couldn't stop you." "True," ANOS agreed without false modesty. "But what else have you learned?" Mitra Surik spoke from where she'd been observing. "That you don't want to destroy us. You held back constantly, never actually harmed anyone despite dozens of opportunities. You disabled rather than injured, demonstrated rather than dominated." ANOS smiled at her. "Perceptive. Yes, I have no interest in pointless destruction. I came here to learn, not to conquer." He looked at each master in turn. "But I need you to understand something fundamental. I don't fear you, I don't need you, and I don't require your permission to act. I'm cooperating because cooperation serves my purposes. The moment it doesn't, I'll do what I judge necessary regardless of your protocols." "That's precisely what concerns us," Atris said coldly. "Absolute power without oversight is tyranny by definition." "No," ANOS corrected patiently. "Absolute power without asterisk purpose is tyranny. I have purpose, the same purpose I had in my world. To identify threats to peace and eliminate them before they can grow, to protect those too weak to protect themselves, to create conditions where genuine harmony can flourish." "And who decides what constitutes a threat?" Kavar challenged. "I do," ANOS said simply, "because I have the power and wisdom to make that judgment. You disagree with that principle because you believe power should be distributed, checked, balanced. But distributed power means slow decisions, compromised solutions, and endless debate while people die." His expression became serious. "I've lived through that system. Watched committees discuss genocide while cities burned. Never again." "You speak of efficiency," Master Vandar observed from his hovering position. "But efficiency without compassion is cruelty. How do we know your judgments are just?" "You don't," ANOS admitted freely. "You can only observe my actions and decide for yourselves. That's why I've agreed to your observation protocols, not because I require your approval, but because I respect the value of external perspective." He paused. "Even tyrants can be wrong. I've been wrong before. The difference between tyranny and leadership is whether you acknowledge your mistakes and correct them." Before anyone could respond, every Jedi in the chamber suddenly stiffened. A disturbance in the Force, not the overwhelming presence of ANOS, but something else. Something hungry asterisk. Master Kavar's comlink chimed urgently. He listened for a moment, his weathered face growing grim. "Report confirmed. A Republic transport just entered the system with unexpected passengers. They're requesting permission to dock at the Senate District landing platform." "Who?" Atris demanded. 3 beings claiming diplomatic immunity under old Republic treaties. Their Force signatures are," Kavar hesitated, choosing his words carefully, "problematic." ANOS felt it then through the Force currents around him. 3 presences approaching Coruscant, each radiating power, malice, and sophisticated control. Sith, certainly, but not the crude, rage-fueled darkness he'd expected based on Mitra's descriptions. These were predators, ancient, patient, and very interested in him. "They've come for me," ANOS said calmly. "Or more accurately, they've come to evaluate whether I'm a weapon they can use or a threat they must eliminate." "How can you possibly know that?" Vrook demanded. "Because it's what I would do in their position," ANOS replied. "A being of unknown power appears in your enemy's stronghold. You don't attack immediately. You investigate, probe for weaknesses, determine if they can be turned or if they must be destroyed. He smiled slightly. Your Sith are more intelligent than your Jedi give them credit for. This could be a trap, Kavar warned. An excuse to bring Sith into the heart of the Republic. It's definitely a trap, ANOS agreed cheerfully. Just not for me. They're hoping I'll do something that justifies Republic aggression, or that your Jedi will overreact and reveal weaknesses. He moved toward the arena exit. I should meet them. I've wanted to evaluate your dark side practitioners. Absolutely not, Atris said sharply. We will not allow you to meet with Sith Lords. Master Atris, ANOS interrupted gently, I wasn't asking permission. The temperature in the arena dropped 10 degrees as his presence expanded slightly, not threatening, simply making clear the reality of the situation. He would meet these Sith whether the Council approved or not. Kavar made a quick decision. Mitra, accompany him. Masters Zezkai El and I will come as well. Official Council observation. He looked at ANOS. Acceptable. Perfectly, ANOS agreed. I appreciate the escort. The Senate District landing platform was a study in controlled chaos. Republic security forces had established a wide perimeter, weapons ready but held at parade rest, a clear message of strength without immediate hostility. Dozens of senators and their aides watched from nearby buildings, curiosity overcoming sense. The transport was nothing remarkable, a standard diplomatic vessel with Republic markings. But the three figures who descended its ramp made several nearby Jedi Knights take involuntary steps backward. The first was a woman, human in appearance, with silver-gray hair pulled back severely and features that might have been beautiful if not for the cold calculation in her eyes. She wore robes that deliberately echoed Jedi styling while incorporating darker elements, a visual statement of corruption and philosophy. The second was a Zabrak male, face covered in ritual scarring, crimson skin marked with ancient Sith tattoos. His presence in the Force was violence barely restrained, a predator forced into temporary civility by pragmatic necessity. The third made ANOS pause with genuine interest. She appeared human, middle-aged with graying hair and eyes hidden behind a white cloth wrapped around her head. Blind, yet she navigated the platform with perfect confidence. Her presence in the Force was strange. Not light, not dark, but something that rejected both. A void that pulled at the Force around her, not consuming like Nihilus had, but questioning it, doubting it, seeking to understand it through its absence. Darth Traya, Master Kavar said quietly, his hand near his lightsaber. We thought you dead. Reports of my demise are frequently exaggerated, the blind woman replied, her voice cultured and sharp as a vibroblade. Master Kavar, still clinging to the Council's dogma, I see. Have they forgiven you yet for being effective during the wars, or do they still hold your competence against you? Your diplomatic immunity expired decades ago, Atris said, arriving with additional Jedi reinforcements. You have no legal right to be here. I invoke Treaty Clause 7. Paragraph 12, Traya replied smoothly. Emergency diplomatic contact during times of galaxy-threatening crisis. And I would argue that. She turned her blind gaze directly toward ANOS. His arrival constitutes exactly that. ANOS studied the three Sith with open fascination. You can sense me. Interesting. Most Force users find me difficult to perceive clearly. That's because most Force users are fools who rely on the Force to think for them, Traya said, a thin smile crossing her face. I have learned to perceive through its absence, and you, stranger, are absence made manifest, a wound but not a consuming one, a rejection of the Force's will. Her smile widened. How deliciously perfect. The Zabrak Sith stepped forward, aggressive posture clear. This is the being causing disruption. He doesn't look like much. Careful, Darth Sion, Traya warned without looking at her companion. Appearances are particularly deceiving in this case. ANOS tilted his head, studying Sion with clinical interest. You're held together by pain and hatred. Your body died long ago, but you refuse to let go. Impressive will, though ultimately self-destructive. He turned to the silver-haired woman. And you're pragmatic, intelligent, seeking power through careful manipulation rather than brute force. More dangerous than your companion in many ways. Darth Nihilus, the woman apparently not nihilist, said coldly, and I am. Not important enough to introduce yourself, ANOS finished. You're the least powerful of the three, brought along to observe and report, possibly to be sacrificed if events turn violent. He looked back at Traya. She's the only one here that matters. The other two are weapons. You're the wielder. For the first time, genuine surprise crossed Traya's features. Remarkable. You perceive the structure of power relationships instantly. It's a necessary skill when ruling demons, ANOS replied. In my world, I frequently dealt with ancient beings who communicated through proxies while their true forms remained hidden. You learn to identify the actual authority quickly. He gestured toward a nearby Senate building's private conference room. Shall we speak somewhere less public? I have questions about your dark side philosophy, and you clearly have questions about me. This is madness, Atris hissed to Kavar. We cannot allow a private meeting between. Between who? ANOS asked mildly. Between Sith Lords and a Demon King. I think we'll manage. Your observation team may accompany us if you insist, though they should understand I intend to have frank discussions about power, purpose, and philosophy. Your Jedi may find the conversation uncomfortable. Kavar made another quick decision, one he suspected he'd regret. Mitra, Zezkai L with me. The rest of you maintain perimeter security. If this is a trap, contain it but do not engage directly unless absolutely necessary. The conference room was luxuriously appointed, wood paneling imported from Alderaan, comfortable seating, a view of Coruscant's endless skyline. It felt surreal, this setting for a meeting between Jedi Masters and Sith Lords, with a Demon King as the nominal guest of honor. Traya settled into a chair with the confidence of someone who'd negotiated in far more hostile environments. Sion remained standing, radiating menace. The third Sith positioned herself near the door, guard duty, as ANOS had predicted. Let me be direct, Traya began, her blind gaze fixed unerringly on ANOS. You represent a unique opportunity, a being of immense power, unbound by the Force's will, uncorrupted by its light or dark sides. You could be the perfect weapon to... No, ANOS interrupted. Traya paused. You haven't heard my proposal. I don't need to. You're going to suggest I help you destroy the Force itself, or corrupt the Jedi Order, or conquer the Republic, or some combination thereof. ANOS leaned back in his chair. I'm not interested in being anyone's weapon. I'm not interested in your war with the Jedi. And I'm especially not interested in nihilistic philosophies that seek to tear down existing structures without offering genuine alternatives. The silence was profound. How, Traya finally asked, did you know my ultimate goal? Because I can see it in how you perceive the Force, ANOS replied. You don't just use it or reject it, you resent asterisk it. You see it as chains binding the galaxy to predestined patterns, robbing beings of genuine choice. You want to kill it to free everyone from its influence. He met her blind gaze directly. It's actually a fascinating philosophy, completely wrong but fascinating. Sion's hand moved to his lightsaber. You dare mock Darth Traya. I'm not mocking, ANOS said, his voice carrying sudden weight that made Sion freeze mid-motion. I'm analyzing. Your master sees a genuine problem. The Force does constrain choice to some degree, does create cycles of light and dark that repeat endlessly. But her solution is flawed because it assumes destruction of the system is preferable to evolution of it. And what would you know of such things? Traya asked, her voice dangerous despite its cultured tone. Everything, ANOS replied simply, because I've done exactly what you're attempting. In my world there was a system, a hierarchical structure of demons, humans, spirits, and gods, all locked in endless conflict according to rules set by the gods of creation. His crimson eyes gleamed with memory. I destroyed those rules, killed the gods who enforced them, tore down the entire structure of fate and destiny. The Sith Lords leaned forward despite themselves. And then, ANOS continued, I discovered that destruction alone creates nothing but chaos, so I built something new, not a return to the old system, but a synthesis, keeping what worked, discarding what didn't, creating space for genuine growth and change. He looked at Traya directly. That's the difference between us. You want to destroy the Force out of resentment. I would evolve it out of necessity. Impossible, Traya breathed. The Force cannot be changed. It is fundamental to this galaxy's existence. Nothing is fundamental if you have sufficient power, ANOS corrected. But such power must be wielded with profound care, because fundamental changes have fundamental consequences. He stood, moving to the window. Your problem isn't that you lack power, Traya. It's that you lack vision beyond destruction. And you possess this vision, she challenged. I possess experience, ANOS replied. I've already remade a universe once. The second time would be easier but also more dangerous, because I understand the stakes better now. He turned back to face her. So no, I won't be your weapon, but I will answer your questions because unlike your Jedi, you're not afraid of uncomfortable truths. Kavar bristled. The Jedi seek truth. The Jedi seek their truth, Traya interrupted. Her voice sharp. The truth that confirms their worldview, validates their sacrifices, justifies their doctrine. Any truth that challenges their assumptions is labeled dark side and dismissed. And the Sith seek power without wisdom, Kavar countered. At least the Jedi restrain themselves. Enough, ANOS said quietly, but the word carried weight that silenced both parties. You're both half right, which makes you both completely wrong. The Jedi have wisdom without sufficient power to enforce it. The Sith have power without sufficient wisdom to wield it properly. And both of you are so locked in your conflict that you can't see your two halves of a complete philosophy. There can be no compromise between light and dark, Mitra said from her position by the wall. The teachings are clear. The teachings are propaganda, Traya snapped. Useful lies told to control Force-sensitive children and prevent them from questioning authority. She looked at ANOS. You understand this. You must. No being reaches your level of power by accepting limitations others impose. True, ANOS agreed. But I also understand that power without purpose is meaningless and purpose without power is futile. Both are necessary. He sat back down, leaning forward. Here's what I've learned from millennia of experience. True strength comes from synthesis, not supremacy. From combining compassion with power, wisdom with action, restraint with capability. Philosophy, Sion growled. Empty words from someone who's never faced real darkness. ANOS turned his crimson gaze on the Lord of Pain, and for the first time, allowed a fraction of his true presence to manifest. The temperature dropped 30 degrees instantly. Frost formed on the windows. The Force itself seemed to recoil from the room as reality bent around ANOS's will. I destroyed my own world, ANOS said softly, his voice carrying echoes of unimaginable power. Reduced continents to ash. Killed millions in a war that lasted centuries. Became such a complete monster that even my allies feared me. The pressure increased, making even Traya grip her armrests. Then I came back from death itself, saw what my actions had created. A world so terrified of power that they'd become weak, divided, pathetic. And I had to decide whether to rule through fear again or find another way. He released the presence as quickly as he'd manifested it, the room's temperature returning to normal. Sion stumbled backward, gasping. Even Traya looked shaken. So don't speak to me of darkness, Lord of Pain, ANOS finished quietly. I've been darkness incarnate. I chose to become something more. That's a choice your Sith philosophy doesn't acknowledge exists, that power can transcend its origins, that strength can serve something beyond itself. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Traya spoke, her voice thoughtful. You're not what I expected. Not a potential weapon, not an ally, not even an enemy in the traditional sense. She tilted her head. You're something I haven't encountered in all my decades studying the Force. A being who genuinely doesn't need it, doesn't fear it, and doesn't worship it. You simply asterisk our asterisk, and the Force must accommodate you rather than the reverse. An accurate assessment, ANOS acknowledged. Which makes you either the most dangerous being in the galaxy, Traya continued, or the most valuable teacher. She stood slowly. I will watch your actions carefully, ANOS Voldigoad. If you prove to be genuine in your stated purpose, to protect peace without becoming tyrannical, then perhaps there is wisdom to be learned from your philosophy. And if he proves false, Sion demanded. Then I'll kill him, Traya said simply, or die trying, but I suspect both outcomes are equally unlikely. He's not our enemy because he doesn't see us as threats. We're simply not relevant to his purposes. The casual dismissal stung precisely because it was accurate. ANOS smiled. You're more perceptive than your Jedi rivals, Traya. That's why your order will ultimately fail. You understand the problems but lack the power to implement solutions. And power acquired through dark side corruption inevitably becomes self-destructive. Then what do you suggest? Traya challenged. How does one acquire sufficient power without corruption? By already being strong enough that power doesn't tempt you, ANOS replied. By seeking power as a tool rather than a goal, by maintaining purpose that transcends self-interest. He looked at each person in the room, Jedi and Sith alike. In my world, I taught this to demon nobles and human mages both. Some learned, some fell, but those who mastered the lesson became legends. Teach me, Mitra said suddenly, surprising everyone including herself. ANOS turned to her with approval. You already understand most of it, you just haven't internalized the lessons. Your time with Revan taught you that sometimes peace requires violence, that protecting the innocent means destroying the guilty, that power used wisely is preferable to weakness disguised as virtue. He glanced at the shocked Jedi Masters. Your order tried to punish you for learning these truths. That was their failure, not yours. This conversation is over, Kavar said firmly, standing. Darth Traya, you've had your meeting. Now leave Coruscant before we're forced to arrest you. Arrest me? Traya laughed, a cold sound without humor. You couldn't arrest me when I was a Jedi Master, Kavar. What makes you think you could now? But she moved toward the door nonetheless. I've learned what I needed to know. She paused beside ANOS. One question, Demon King. If you're so powerful, so wise, so experienced, why haven't you simply taken control of this galaxy, imposed your peace through overwhelming strength? ANOS met her blind gaze steadily. Because I tried that once. It worked for 1,000 years, then crumbled the moment I died. Imposed peace is temporary. True peace must be chosen, understood, valued by those it protects. His voice softened. That's the lesson I learned too late in my first life. I won't repeat that mistake here. Traya studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Perhaps you are wise after all, or perhaps you're simply tired. She smiled thinly. Time will reveal which. The three Sith departed, leaving the Jedi and ANOS in heavy silence. Finally, Master Zezkai El spoke. What you just did, meeting with Sith Lords, discussing philosophy, revealing your capabilities, violated every protocol we have. I know, ANOS said simply. But now both your Jedi and your Sith understand what I am and what I'm not. That clarity will prevent misunderstandings that could lead to unnecessary conflict. Or it's painted a target on your back, Kavar warned. Traya is not one to leave potential threats unaddressed. ANOS smiled. Let her try, I welcome the challenge. Besides, his expression became more serious. She's right about one thing. Your Force does constrain choice more than you acknowledge. I've been studying it since I arrived, and the patterns are clear. Light side users become passive, waiting for the Force to guide them. Dark side users become reactive, driven by passion without discipline. Both rob themselves of genuine agency. And you would change this how? Mitra asked. By teaching those willing to learn that the Force is a tool, not a master. That power can be wielded without corruption if your purpose is strong enough. That compassion and strength aren't contradictory, they're complementary. ANOS moved toward the door. But that's a lesson for later. First, I need to see more of this galaxy. Understand the scope of the problems before proposing solutions. Where will you go? Kavar asked warily. Everywhere, ANOS replied. Your republic, your Sith territories, your neutral zones. I want to see how this galaxy functions at every level, not just the pretty capital, but the broken underbelly. He glanced back. And your Jedi will accompany me, providing context and ensuring I don't accidentally start wars through cultural ignorance. That's not a request, is it? Kavar said tiredly. It's a courtesy, ANOS corrected. I could go alone, but I'd prefer local guides who can help me understand what I'm seeing. As ANOS left the Senate building, Mitra fell into step beside him. You handled that well. Traya is difficult. She's brilliant but nihilistic, ANOS replied. A dangerous combination. She sees problems clearly but seeks destruction rather than solutions. In my world, we had philosophers like her. They inevitably destroyed themselves trying to tear down structures they couldn't replace. Can I really learn from you? Mitra asked quietly. Your philosophy, your approach to power, the Council would consider it heresy. The Council considers competence heresy, ANOS said bluntly. They've created a system where being effective is suspicious and being powerful. The starship provided by the Republic was comfortable but unremarkable. A Hammerhead-class cruiser named the Ebon Hawk II, named after the legendary vessel that had carried Revan across the galaxy. Master Kavar had personally selected it for ANOS's journey, along with a crew of Jedi observers and Republic security personnel. ANOS stood on the observation deck as they broke atmosphere, watching Coruscant shrink to a glowing jewel against the void. Beside him, Mitra Surik studied a datapad containing their itinerary, a carefully planned route through various Republic worlds designed to showcase the galaxy's diversity while keeping ANOS away from sensitive military installations. They're afraid I'll steal your secrets, ANOS observed without looking at her. Can you blame them? Mitra replied. You demonstrated abilities that shouldn't exist, met with Sith Lords without permission, and casually discussed remaking the fundamental nature of the Force. From their perspective, you're a catastrophe waiting to happen. Fair assessment. ANOS turned from the viewport. Where are we going first? Dantooine, agricultural world, site of a Jedi enclave that was destroyed during the Civil War. The Council thought it would be educational for you to see the consequences of unlimited warfare. ANOS's expression became thoughtful. They want me to see destruction and feel remorse, to understand that power without restraint leads to tragedy. He smiled slightly. They don't realize I've seen far worse, but I appreciate the attempt at moral education. The jump to hyperspace was smooth, the stars elongating into infinite lines as the ship surged beyond lightspeed. ANOS felt the transition acutely, the way spacetime bent around their vessel, the exotic matter keeping them from being crushed by relativistic effects, the sheer elegance of technology that manipulated fundamental physical laws. Your hyperspace travel is impressive, he admitted. In my world, dimensional travel required enormous magical power and often resulted in catastrophic side effects. Your technology accomplishes similar results through pure physics and engineering. You respect our technology but dismiss our Force abilities, Mitra asked with a hint of challenge. I respect competence wherever I find it, ANOS corrected. Your technology is competent, elegant solutions to complex problems. Your Force abilities are powerful but philosophically constrained. You could accomplish far more if you weren't bound by artificial limitations. The limitations exist for good reason, a new voice interjected. Master Zez-Kai-El entered the observation deck, his scarred face grave. Power without restraint is how Darth Nihilus consumed entire planets, how Revan nearly destroyed the Republic he sought to save. How weak people with strong powers destroy themselves and others, ANOS finished. Yes, I understand the pattern, but you're conflating restraint with restriction. Restraint is choosing not to use power you possess. Restriction is being unable to use power even when necessary. He looked at the Jedi Master directly. Your order teaches restriction and calls it restraint. That's intellectual dishonesty. Zez-Kai-El settled into one of the observation seats with a grunt. Perhaps we've learned through 25 millennia of experience that certain powers corrupt inevitably, that some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. Then your species is weaker than mine, ANOS said bluntly. Demon nobles in my world wielded destruction magic from birth, the power to level cities, to manipulate souls, to warp reality itself. Yet we built a civilization, maintained peace for centuries, because we understood that power is neutral, it's purpose that matters. Demons, Zez-Kai-El repeated skeptically. Literal demons maintaining peace. After I conquered them, yes, ANOS acknowledged. Before that, we were locked in endless warfare with humans. Millions died over centuries. The hatred ran so deep that even speaking of peace was considered treason. His voice softened with memory. I ended that hatred through overwhelming force, united the demons under my rule, then offered humans a choice, peace through cooperation or annihilation through resistance. That's tyranny, Mitra said quietly. Yes, ANOS agreed without hesitation. It was absolute tyranny. I gave them no choice but peace because they'd proven incapable of choosing it themselves. And for 1,000 years after my death, demons and humans lived in harmony. He paused. Then my legacy calcified into oppression. The strong dominated the weak without purpose. Peace became stagnation. That's when I reincarnated and had to fix everything again. What did you do differently the second time? Zez-Kai-El asked despite his skepticism. I taught instead of commanded, ANOS replied. Showed them that strength should protect, not dominate. That power without compassion creates nothing worth preserving. I enrolled in the Demon King Academy, an institution supposedly training the next generation of leaders, and demonstrated that their understanding of strength was incomplete. He smiled at the memory. They thought I was a misfit because I valued friendship, because I protected the weak, because I refused to see power as zero-sum competition. But by the time I graduated, I'd proven that compassion makes you stronger, not weaker. That bonds of genuine loyalty are more valuable than hierarchies of fear. And they accepted this teaching, Mitra asked, just like that. Of course not, ANOS laughed. Most rejected it initially, called me soft, weak, a disgrace to demon heritage. So I challenged the entire Academy's elite simultaneously and defeated them without breaking a sweat. Then I explained that strength allowing compassion is true power, while strength requiring cruelty is compensating for weakness. His expression became serious. Actions teach better than words, always. The ship shuddered slightly as it dropped out of hyperspace. Through the viewport, Dantooine appeared, a pleasant world of rolling grasslands, crystal formations, and scattered agricultural settlements. Beautiful, peaceful, seemingly untouched by the wars that had consumed the galaxy. Until you looked closer and saw the ruins. The Jedi Enclave had been a magnificent structure once, elegant architecture blending with natural landscape, meditation gardens, training halls where generations of Jedi had learned to touch the Force. Now it was a crater, the ground itself scorched and twisted from bombardment so intense it had altered the local geology. ANOS studied the destruction silently as they descended toward a nearby settlement. Orbital bombardment. Sith fleet, Zez-Kai-El confirmed, his voice heavy. Malach's forces. They destroyed the Enclave to deny the Jedi a base of operations, killed everyone inside. Masters, knights, Padawans, support staff. Hundreds dead in minutes. Efficient, ANOS observed clinically, earning shocked looks. I'm not endorsing it. I'm acknowledging the tactical reasoning. Your Darth Malak understood that Jedi facilities represented strategic assets. Eliminating them quickly prevented prolonged resistance. He turned from the viewport. In my wars, I did similar things. Destroyed demon fortresses, eliminated entire bloodlines that refused peace. The logic is sound. Remove your enemy's ability to coordinate and resist. Those were people, Mitra said, her voice tight with suppressed emotion. Not tactical assets. People with families, dreams, purposes beyond being eliminated for strategic convenience. Yes, ANOS agreed quietly. They were, and every single death was a tragedy that I carry responsibility for. That's the weight of power, Mitra. When you're strong enough to end wars, you're also strong enough to end lives. The question is whether you do so needlessly, or whether you calculate the minimum necessary force to achieve your objective. They landed near the settlement, a small farming community that had somehow survived the conflict relatively intact. The locals watched the Republic vessel with mixed emotions, hope that it brought aid, fear that it brought trouble, and the weary resignation of people who'd learned not to expect much from galactic authorities. The settlement elder was a weathered human woman named Sayla, her face lined with decades of agricultural work and recent years of grief. She greeted the Jedi politely, but without the deference they might have expected. "Master Jedi," she said to Zez-Kai-El, "we weren't expecting a visit. Is the Republic finally sending aid to rebuild, or is this another survey mission that produces reports instead of results?" The bitter edge to her words spoke volumes about the Republic's reconstruction efforts, or lack thereof. "We're here to show a visitor the effects of the war," Zez-Kai-El explained carefully, "to help him understand what unlimited conflict costs." Sayla's gaze shifted to ANOS, taking in his foreign clothing, his crimson eyes, the subtle wrongness that made him stand out even among diverse galactic species. "A visitor? From where?" "Very far away," ANOS replied with a slight smile. "Another universe entirely, if you can believe such things." "After what I've seen, I'll believe anything," Sayla said tiredly. She gestured toward the devastated enclave in the distance. "You want to understand war's cost? Walk through there. Feel the lingering darkness. The Jedi say the Force remembers trauma, echoes it back for decades. That place screams." ANOS began walking toward the ruins without waiting for escort. Mitra and Zez-Kai-El exchanged glances before following. The approach to the enclave was through once-maintained grounds now returning to wild grassland. Training equipment lay scattered and rusted. Meditation stones had been overturned by bombardment shockwaves, and everywhere there were traces, personal items abandoned in hasty evacuation, half-burned texts, children's toys. ANOS paused at a small training saber, designed for Padawans to practice basic forms. He picked it up carefully, examining the simple construction, the weight balanced for young hands learning discipline and control. "Children trained here," he said quietly. "Younglings," Mitra confirmed. "Some as young as 4 or 5 standard years. The Jedi identify Force-sensitive children early, bring them to enclaves for training." Her voice caught slightly. "Most of the younglings here were evacuated before the bombardment. Most." ANOS set the training saber down gently, with more care than he'd shown anything since arriving in this galaxy. "In my world, we had academies too, places where young demons learned to control their power, to channel destruction into purpose." He continued walking toward the main crater. "When humans attacked those academies during the wars, I responded with overwhelming force. Destroyed entire human cities in retaliation. Called it justice." "Was it?" Zez-Kai-El asked. "No," ANOS said simply. "It was revenge disguised as deterrence. The humans were wrong to target children. I was wrong to escalate indiscriminately. Both sides lost perspective in our hatred." He reached the crater's edge, looking down into the scorched earth that had once been halls of learning. "This is what war does. It takes our worst impulses, our fear, our rage, our capacity for dehumanizing enemies, and gives them license to operate without restraint. The force around the ruins was indeed traumatic, a psychic wound that made even ANOS feel its echoes. Hundreds of deaths, sudden and terrified, leaving impressions in this energy field that permeated all things. Fear, confusion, desperate final attempts to shield younglings, masters giving their lives to buy seconds for evacuation. And beneath it all, something else, something that made ANOS frown. "There's a pattern here," he said slowly, kneeling at the crater's edge. The bombardment was precise, not indiscriminate. Whoever ordered this attack knew exactly where to strike for maximum destruction while minimizing collateral damage to surrounding areas. "You can determine that just by looking?" Zez-Kai-El asked skeptically. "I can determine that by analyzing the strike pattern and residual energy signatures," ANOS replied. He gestured to the crater's shape, not circular, but elongated, following the enclave's underground structure. "Your Darth Malak's forces had intelligence, detailed architectural plans, probably provided by someone who knew the facility intimately." Mitra's face went pale. "You're saying a Jedi betrayed the enclave?" "I'm saying someone with insider knowledge provided targeting data," ANOS corrected. "Whether that was willing betrayal, coerced cooperation, or captured information, I can't determine without more evidence." He stood, brushing dust from his hands. But this wasn't mindless destruction. This was calculated elimination of a strategic asset by someone who understood its value. "Malak was a former Jedi," Zez-Kai-El admitted reluctantly. "He knew our facilities, our protocols, our defensive capabilities. That knowledge made him far more dangerous than a typical Sith." "Knowledge is always dangerous in enemy hands," ANOS agreed. "That's why I never wrote down my most powerful spells in my world. Information persists beyond loyalty, survives beyond lifespans, can be stolen or extracted through methods ranging from simple theft to complex mind-reading techniques." He looked at the Jedi Master. "Your Order's practice of recording everything in archives is a strategic vulnerability." They spent an hour exploring the ruins, ANOS asking questions about Jedi training methods, facility purposes, the philosophical framework that had guided this place. The more he learned, the more his expression grew troubled. Finally, as they prepared to return to the settlement, Mitra asked, "What are you thinking?" "That your Jedi Order makes the same mistakes the gods of my world made," ANOS replied. "They take children from their families at young ages, before critical bonds can form. They teach suppression of emotion rather than healthy emotional processing. They create artificial hierarchies that value conformity over individual strength." He turned to face both Jedi directly. "You're not raising Force users. You're manufacturing weapons that pretend to be peacekeepers." "That's not," Zez-Kai-El began heatedly. "It is," ANOS interrupted firmly. "Look at your results. How many of your Order's most powerful members have fallen to the dark side? Revan, Malak, this Darth Traya who was once a Jedi Master. How many more? Dozens? Hundreds?" "The dark side is seductive," Mitra said quietly. "It offers power without the discipline required by the light. Those who fall are weak, unable to resist temptation." "No," ANOS corrected sharply. "Those who fall are strong asterisk. Strong enough to recognize that your restrictions are artificial. Strong enough to seek power that could actually make a difference. But because you've given them no framework for pursuing power ethically, they embrace corruption as the only alternative to impotence." The accusation hung in the air, uncomfortable and unrefuted. "What would you have us do?" Zez-Kai-El demanded. "Allow young Force users to run wild, developing powers without guidance or restraint. That's how you get monsters." "That's how you get monsters when the only guidance is don't use your power," ANOS agreed. "But if you taught them why asterisk to use power, when to use power, how asterisk to use power responsibly, taught purpose alongside capability, you'd get something very different." He began walking back toward the settlement. In the Demon King Academy, we taught destruction magic alongside ethics, combat alongside philosophy, power alongside purpose. Students learned they could be strong and compassionate, powerful, and protective. Those who proved otherwise were removed from society. Killed, Mitra asked. If necessary, ANOS confirmed without shame. Some beings cannot be redeemed, cannot be rehabilitated, represent existential threats to others. For those individuals, swift elimination is the only ethical choice. But they were rare. Most beings, even demons raised in violence, can learn better methods if given proper education and genuine consequences. They reached the settlement as evening fell, Dantooine's sun painting the grasslands in shades of amber and gold. Sayla had prepared a meal for them, simple but hearty, the kind of food that sustained hard-working farmers. Around the communal table, ANOS found himself surrounded by settlers, humans, Twi'leks, even a few Rhodians who'd fled the core worlds during the conflict. They regarded him with curiosity, unburdened by the Force sensitivity that made Jedi fear him. "So you're from another universe?" a young Twi'lek farmer asked, his leku twitching with interest. "What's it like there?" "Currently peaceful," ANOS replied, accepting a bowl of grain stew. "We fought wars for millennia, destroyed ourselves repeatedly, until we learned that strength without purpose is waste and conflict without resolution is suicide." "Must be nice," Sayla said dryly. "Here, we just keep fighting the same wars with different flags." "The Republic and Sith," ANOS observed. "Endless cycles of conflict with neither side capable of achieving permanent victory." "Or permanent defeat," an older human added. "The Jedi win, the Sith go underground and rebuild. The Sith win, the Jedi retreat and regroup. Meanwhile, people like us," he gestured around the table, "we lose our homes, our families, our futures, and nobody with power gives a damn." ANOS listened to their stories throughout the meal. Families split by draft requirements, farms destroyed by passing fleets, children orphaned by bombardments that military planners called acceptable collateral damage. The human cost of galactic conflict, reduced to statistics by those insulated from consequences. "This is what your philosophy costs," Zez-Kai-El said quietly to ANOS as the settlers dispersed for the evening. "This is what happens when powerful beings fight without considering those caught between them." "Yes," ANOS agreed. "And this is also what happens when your Jedi Order prioritizes maintaining cosmic balance over protecting actual people. When you allow conflicts to drag on for years, because decisively ending them would require accepting morally complex choices." "What would you have done?" Mitra challenged. "If you were here during the Mandalorian Wars, watching the Republic get slaughtered while the Council debated action?" ANOS's answer came without hesitation. "I would have ended it, immediately, decisively, overwhelmingly. Not by joining one side or the other, but by demonstrating to both sides that continued conflict would result in annihilation." His crimson eyes reflected the settlement's fires. "I would have gone to the Mandalorian leadership and offered a choice. Accept peace or face a power that makes all your warriors meaningless." When they refused, because warriors always refuse initially, I would have destroyed their capacity to wage war so completely that resistance became impossible. "You would have slaughtered them," Zez-Kai-El said. "I would have neutralized them," ANOS corrected. "Destroying ships, infrastructure, command hierarchies, killing only those who continued fighting after the futility became obvious. Then I would have helped rebuild, integrating Mandalorians into a larger peaceful structure that valued their warrior culture while redirecting it toward constructive purposes." "Tyranny," the Jedi Master repeated. "Effective leadership," ANOS countered. "The Mandalorians respect strength, showing weakness, negotiating from positions of compromise, that invites their contempt, but defeating them so completely they have no choice but to acknowledge your superiority. That earns respect, and respect enables cooperation." Mitra looked troubled. Revan did something similar, convinced many Mandalorians to join him after defeating them. And your council called it corruption, ANOS said, because they couldn't understand that sometimes peace requires overwhelming force, that protecting billions of innocents justifies destroying thousands of warriors who chose violence. He stood, looking out over the settlement. Your Jedi want peace, but they're unwilling to pay its price. Your Sith want power, but they lack the discipline to use it constructively. And between these two incomplete philosophies, the galaxy bleeds. That night, ANOS stood outside the settlement, looking up at stars that represented billions of beings living under threat of endless conflict. He reached out with his perception, not through the Force, which remained foreign to him, but through his own magical senses adapted to this universe's rules. He felt the currents of power flowing through the galaxy. Jedi enclaves scattered across dozens of worlds, points of light in the cosmic darkness. Sith academies hidden in the unknown regions, wells of dark side energy plotting conquest and revenge. And beneath it all, the Force itself, that vast, living energy field that both sides claim to serve, while understanding only fragments of its true nature. You're planning something, Mitra said, approaching from the settlement. I can see it in your posture. You've made a decision. Yes, ANOS confirmed. I've seen enough of your galaxy's surface. Now I need to see its depths, the places where your conflicts originate, where power concentrates, where the real decisions affecting billions are made. The Senate, Mitra guessed. Eventually, but first I want to visit a Sith academy, see how your dark side teaches its students, compare their methods to your Jedi approach. ANOS looked at her directly. And I want you to come with me. You've touched both philosophies. Your perspective will be valuable. The Council would never approve. I'm not asking the Council, ANOS interrupted gently. I'm asking you, as an individual capable of making her own choices, not as a Jedi following orders. His voice softened. That's the difference between my teaching and theirs, Mitra. I treat you as an adult with agency. They treat you as a weapon requiring proper handling. Mitra was silent for a long moment, torn between Jedi conditioning and the uncomfortable truth in ANOS's words. Finally, she said, if I go with you to a Sith academy, the Council will consider it betrayal. They'll exile me again, possibly permanently. Yes, ANOS agreed. They probably will, because they can't conceive of studying darkness without being consumed by it. Can't imagine that someone might examine both light and dark and choose synthesis over supremacy. He smiled slightly. But I think you're strong enough to make that choice. Strong enough to forge your own path between extremes. And if I'm not, Mitra asked quietly, if I fall? Then I'll stop you, ANOS said simply. I've killed gods and demon lords. One corrupted Jedi wouldn't challenge me. His expression became serious. But I don't think you'll fall. I think you'll grow stronger. True strength comes from understanding all perspectives and consciously choosing your purpose, not from blind adherence to doctrine you've never questioned. Mitra turned back toward the settlement, toward the sleeping Jedi who trusted her to maintain orthodoxy, toward a council that would see her choice as betrayal. Then she looked at the ruins of the enclave, at the crater that represented everything wrong with the galaxy's endless cycles of light and dark destroying each other while innocents suffered. All right, she said finally, I'll come, but not because I'm choosing you over the Jedi. I'm choosing to learn, to understand, to become strong enough that I never have to watch helplessly while people die because philosophical debates prevented action. ANOS smiled, genuine approval in his expression. That's the right reason, the only reason that matters. He began walking toward their ship. We leave at dawn. Master Zezkai El won't approve, but he'll understand, eventually. Behind them, in the settlement, Sayla watched from her window. She didn't understand the conversation she'd partially overheard, didn't grasp the philosophical stakes these beings discussed. But she understood that the strange visitor with crimson eyes looked at the galaxy differently than any Jedi or Sith she'd encountered. looked at suffering, and saw problems to solve rather than cosmic balances to maintain. And for people like her, caught in the crossfire of powers beyond their control, that difference might matter more than all the Force philosophy in the galaxy. The Sith Academy on Korriban was everything ANOS expected, and nothing he anticipated. He expected darkness, the pervasive, almost tangible presence of the dark side that saturated the ancient world like radiation. He expected violence, cruelty, the ruthless hierarchy of predators constantly testing each other for weakness. He expected architecture designed to intimidate, to remind students that power was the only currency that mattered. What he didn't expect was how wasteful it all was. The academy sprawled across a valley of red sand and black stone, its towers sharp as blade edges, its walls carved with Sith script that promised power to the worthy and death to the weak. Students, humans, Sith purebloods, various alien species, moved through corridors with the wary tension of people who might be attacked at any moment by their own classmates. ANOS and Mitra had arrived under false credentials, a simple matter when you could manipulate perception itself, as prospective students from an outer rim world seeking dark side training. The deception wouldn't hold long against masters who specialized in reading minds and emotions, but it would last long enough to observe. "This place feels wrong," Mitra whispered as they moved through the entrance hall. Her hand rested on her concealed lightsaber, instinct screaming warnings that made her skin crawl. "The dark side is concentrated here, like poison in water. It's channeled through the architecture," ANOS observed, examining the walls with interest. "These carvings aren't decoration. They're focusing arrays for dark side energy. The entire structure is designed to amplify negative emotions, to make students constantly aggressive, paranoid, hungry for power." His expression became thoughtful. "Clever, but counterproductive. You can't build genuine strength on a foundation of artificially induced emotion." They were directed to an orientation chamber where 24 prospective students waited nervously. An overseer entered, a human woman whose face was marked with ritual scarring, her yellow eyes indicating deep immersion in the dark side. She surveyed the assembled students with the calculating gaze of a butcher evaluating meat. "Welcome to the Sith Academy," she said, her voice carrying casual menace. "Half of you will die here. Another quarter will wash out and return to whatever pathetic lives you fled from. The remainder might, survive to become acolytes, and from there, perhaps eventually apprentices to true Sith lords." She began packing, her boots clicking against stone. "The weak have no place here. The hesitant have no future. The compassionate are already dead, they just don't know it yet." Her gaze swept across them. "Power is the only truth. Strength is the only virtue, and pain is the greatest teacher you'll ever have." ANOS raised his hand. The overseer stopped, surprised by the audacity. "You have a question already?" "Several, actually," ANOS replied pleasantly. "First, what's your attrition rate? Second, of those who survive, what percentage achieve meaningful power versus becoming disposable assets? Third, have you calculated the resource waste inherent in killing half your student body?" The chamber fell silent. Several students edged away from ANOS, recognizing suicidal stupidity when they saw it. The overseer's expression shifted from surprise to predatory interest. "You question Sith methods." "I question inefficient methods," ANOS corrected. "In my experience, organizations that deliberately kill half their recruits are either very confident in their recruitment pipeline or very incompetent at education. Which is it?" The overseer's hand moved to her lightsaber. "You dare." "I dare quite a lot," ANOS interrupted calmly. "But I'm genuinely curious. What's the pedagogical philosophy here? That suffering creates strength, that competition breeds excellence, that cruelty ensures only the worthy survive." He tilted his head. "Because I've run similar experiments and the results were disappointing. Brutality creates survivors, not excellence." The overseer ignited her lightsaber, a crimson blade that hummed with barely restrained violence. Perhaps a demonstration will clarify our philosophy. You, arrogant one, step forward. Let's see if your mouth is stronger than your body. ANOS walked into the open space between students and overseer, his posture relaxed, his expression curious. What are the rules? There are no rules, the overseer hissed. That's the first lesson. Power makes its own rules. Weakness accepts limitations imposed by others. She raised her blade into an aggressive Juyo stance. Defend yourself or die. Either outcome teaches the others something valuable. She struck with force-enhanced speed, her blade a crimson arc designed to bisect ANOS from shoulder to hip. He caught the lightsaber blade between two fingers. The impossible image, flesh stopping a plasma weapon that could cut through durasteel, froze everyone in place. The overseer stared in disbelief at her weapon, trapped as if gripped by immovable machinery. Interesting, ANOS said, examining the blade closely. Contained plasma held in magnetic field generated from a kyber crystal. The heat is impressive, several thousand degrees, but it's still just matter and energy, subject to manipulation by sufficient will. He released the blade. Your strike was technically proficient but telegraphed. You shifted your weight a full second before committing to the attack. Against a trained opponent, that would be fatal. The overseer stumbled backward, yellow eyes wide with shock that quickly transformed into rage. What are you? Someone who finds your teaching methods inadequate, ANOS replied. He looked around the chamber at the assembled students, young beings who'd come seeking power, perhaps fleeing persecution or poverty, or simply hungry for something more than ordinary life offered. You're wasting them, culling half through artificial trials rather than identifying genuine talent and nurturing it properly. The Sith do not nurture, the overseer spat. We forge, we test, we eliminate weakness. And in doing so, you eliminate potential, ANOS countered. How many students with genuine capability have you killed because they weren't immediately ruthless enough? How many could have become powerful given proper education instead of trial by murder? He turned back to her. Your system produces survivors, yes, but it doesn't produce the best. It produces whoever happened to be most willing to backstab their classmates first. The overseer's rage crystallized into dark side power. Energy crackled around her, the force itself bending to her fury. You understand nothing. The dark side requires passion, requires hunger, requires the willingness to take what you want by force. Does it? ANOS asked. Or have you simply built a system that self-selects for sociopaths and calls it philosophy? She screamed and unleashed force lightning, that signature Sith power, raw electrical energy channeled through hatred and will. Blue-white arcs erupted from her fingertips, enough power to char flesh from bone, to stop hearts, to kill a dozen unprotected beings. ANOS absorbed it completely, the lightning disappearing into his body as if into a void. He felt the energy, crude, emotional, wasteful, and metabolized it into nothing. Adequate power, poor control, he observed clinically. You're channeling emotion into the force rather than using the force as a tool. That makes your power dependent on maintaining rage, which is exhausting and unsustainable. Eventually, you'll burn out or become so consumed by darkness that you lose all strategic capability. The overseer collapsed to her knees, the force lightning guttering out. She'd poured everything into that attack, enough power to kill everyone in the chamber, and it had accomplished nothing except exhausting her. ANOS looked at the assembled students. That's the fundamental flaw in Sith philosophy. You're taught that power comes from passion, from hatred, from giving in to your darkest impulses. But that makes you slaves to emotion rather than masters of it. He extended his hand, and crimson energy, his own destructive magic, materialized between his fingers. True power is a tool you control, not a force that controls you. The energy intensified, reality cracking around it, the chamber's temperature spiking until several students cried out in pain. Then ANOS closed his fist and the power vanished instantly, completely under his control. "That's the difference," he said quietly. "I can access destructive power without needing to hate, can fight without needing rage, can kill without needing to enjoy it." His crimson eyes swept across the students. "Any of you could learn this, but not here, because this academy teaches you to be slaves to the dark side rather than its masters." Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor. A massive figure entered, nearly 7 feet tall, his body a patchwork of scars and cybernetics, sustained through sheer force of will despite wounds that should have been fatal decades ago. Darth Sion, the Lord of Pain. "You," Sion growled, recognition evident in his yellow eyes. "The anomaly from Coruscant. What are you doing in our academy?" "Observing," ANOS replied calmly. "Evaluating whether your dark side offers any wisdom that your light side lacks. So far, I'm disappointed. Your Jedi suppress emotion unhealthily. Your Sith indulge emotion destructively. Neither understands balance." "Balance is a Jedi lie," Sion said, his voice rough as grinding stone. "There is only power in those too weak to seek it. The Sith embrace that truth. The Jedi hide from it." "The Sith embrace half a truth and call it wisdom," ANOS corrected. "Yes, power matters. Yes, those who deny their strength out of fear are handicapping themselves. But power pursued without purpose becomes addiction. Strength without direction becomes tyranny. That's why your Sith empire constantly collapses into internal conflict. You create systems that reward backstabbing and call it natural selection." Sion's hand moved to his lightsaber. "You dare lecture me? I have survived for centuries through pure will. I have endured pain that would shatter lesser beings. I am immortal through mastery of the dark side itself." "You're a corpse too stubborn to die," ANOS said bluntly. "Sustained through constant agony, your body held together by hatred and force techniques that should have failed decades ago. That's not mastery, that's addiction. You're so afraid of death that you've trapped yourself in endless suffering." The truth hit Sion like a physical blow. His scarred features twisted with rage, and he drew his lightsaber, a crimson blade as broken and patched as its wielder. "I'll teach you to respect Sith power." He attacked with the fury of centuries of accumulated pain, his strikes carrying the weight of a being who'd endured torture that would drive normal minds to madness. Fast, vicious, relentless, the fighting style of someone who couldn't be killed and knew it. ANOS dodged every strike with minimal movement, his expression analytical. "You're predictable. Pain may have made you resilient, but it's also made you rigid. You fight the same way every time, unable to adapt because adaptation requires calm analysis, and you've cultivated only rage." Sion's attacks intensified, his blade carving gouges in the stone floor, the dark side energy around him so thick it made several students vomit. "Die, die." "I decline," ANOS said and touched Sion's chest. The Lord of Pain froze. For the first time in decades, the constant agony that sustained him stopped. ANOS had simply severed the force connections that held Sion's broken body together, the techniques that channeled pain into power. Without that connection, Sion was just an ancient being whose body should have failed centuries ago. He collapsed, gasping, his lightsaber clattering to the floor. "This is mercy," ANOS said quietly, kneeling beside the fallen Sith Lord. "I can see the techniques sustaining you. Complex, ingenious, a masterwork of dark side manipulation. But also a cage. Every second of existence is agony, yet you cling to it out of fear." His voice softened. "Let go. Accept death. It's not the enemy you've made it." "You don't understand," Sion gasped, his cybernetics sparking as systems failed. "Cannot die purpose, unfulfilled." "Then I'll restore you," ANOS said. "But understand, this reprieve is temporary. Eventually you'll have to choose. Continue this existence of pain or find peace." He touched Sion's chest again, and the force connections restored themselves. Pain flooded back, and with it, the terrible vitality that had sustained the Lord of Pain across centuries. Sion surged to his feet, whole again, but something in his yellow eyes had changed. "Why?" he demanded. "Why show mercy to a Sith?" "Because I'm not interested in pointless cruelty," ANOS replied. "You're a cautionary tale, proof that the dark side's promises of power become prisons if pursued without wisdom. But you're also a being who's suffered enough. If you want to continue suffering, that's your choice. But know that it is * a choice, not an inevitability." Before Sion could respond, another presence entered the chamber. Darth Traya, the Lord of Betrayal, her blind gaze fixed unerringly on ANOS despite her lack of sight. "Fascinating," she said, her voice carrying dark amusement. "You've just demonstrated more control over the Force than most Sith achieve in lifetimes of study, and you're not even Force-sensitive in the traditional sense." She moved closer, 3 lightsabers floating around her, telekinetically controlled, her signature technique. "You weren't lying on Coruscant. You truly do understand power at a level we've barely conceptualized." "Your academy is fundamentally flawed," ANOS said directly. "You're killing students who could become powerful given proper training, creating a culture of betrayal that ensures your strongest members eventually turn on each other, building a system that produces short-term results at the cost of long-term sustainability." "All true," Traya agreed calmly, "and intentional. The Sith way is not about building lasting institutions. It's about concentrating power in the hands of the most capable, then letting them shape the galaxy according to their will. Sustainable systems create stagnation. Brutal competition creates innovation." "Innovation built on corpses," Mitra interjected, speaking for the first time since entering the academy. She'd been observing silently, her revulsion at the Sith methods growing with each revelation. "How many geniuses has your system killed before they could achieve their potential? How many could have changed the galaxy if given the chance to grow?" "The same number who would have been crushed by the first real challenge they faced," Traya countered. "You Jedi believe potential deserves nurturing. We Sith believe potential means nothing without the will to claim it violently. Both philosophies are incomplete, but at least ours doesn't pretend weakness is virtuous." "And mine," ANOS said, his voice carrying sudden authority that made even Traya pay attention, "recognizes that both of you are half right and completely wrong. Power does matter. Potential should be cultivated, but neither requires the cruelty you inflict or the suppression the Jedi demand." He turned to address the entire chamber, students, overseers, Sith lords. "In my world, I built an academy that taught destruction magic to demon nobles. We had students capable of annihilating cities, of warping reality, of killing with a thought. Yet we maintained order, prevented internal conflict, produced graduates who were both immensely powerful and genuinely committed to protecting our world." "How?" the overseer asked despite herself, her earlier arrogance replaced by genuine curiosity. "By teaching that power is responsibility," ANOS replied. "That those who are strong have an obligation to protect those who are weak. That destruction magic exists to eliminate threats to peace, not to dominate the vulnerable. That being powerful means being able to hurt others, but choosing not to accept when necessary." He looked at Traya directly. "Your Sith teach that might makes right. My academy taught that might creates responsibility. That's the difference between tyranny and leadership." "Beautiful philosophy," Traya said, her tone carrying acid skepticism. "But how do you enforce it? How do you prevent the naturally cruel from using their power for oppression once they've mastered it?" "By being stronger than them," ANOS said simply. "When I ruled as Demon King, the understanding was clear. You could be as powerful as you wanted, pursue any goal you desired, but the moment you threatened innocent beings, you answered to me, and I was always stronger." His expression became serious. "That's the fundamental requirement for benevolent tyranny. The tyrant must be genuinely beyond challenge. Otherwise, it devolves into standard oppression." "And you believe you're beyond challenge here?" Sion growled, his earlier defeat still fresh. "I know I am," ANOS replied without arrogance, simply stating fact. I've evaluated your galaxy's power levels extensively. Your most powerful Sith Lords, your legendary Jedi Masters, your ancient Force entities, they're all operating at levels I surpassed millennia ago. That's not boasting. That's tactical assessment. Prove it, Traya said suddenly. Demonstrate this transcendent power you claim. Show us something that would make even the most accomplished Sith acknowledge your supremacy. ANOS considered the request. What would you accept as proof? The Academy has a trial, Traya said, gesturing toward a corridor leading deeper into the structure. The Tomb of Naga Sadow, an ancient Sith Lord whose spirit still lingers, testing those who seek his knowledge. Most students who enter die, some go mad. The strongest emerge with dark side secrets that advance their power significantly. Her blind gaze fixed on him. Enter the tomb, survive the trials, claim Naga Sadow's knowledge, then we'll discuss your philosophy. And if I refuse, then we'll know your power has limits you're afraid to test, Traya replied. That your philosophy is untested theory rather than proven methodology. ANOS smiled. A reasonable challenge, I accept. He looked at Mitra. Stay here. This is something I should evaluate alone. No, Mitra said firmly. I came to understand both light and dark. A Sith tomb is exactly where I need to be. The Jedi speaks truth, Traya said with dark amusement. Besides, Naga Sadow's trials are educational. She'll learn things about herself that the Jedi Council would never teach her. ANOS studied Mitra carefully, seeing the determination in her eyes, the willingness to face darkness on its own terms. Very well, but understand, if the tomb's influence threatens to corrupt you, I will intervene, violently if necessary. I understand, Mitra replied. They descended into the tomb together, leaving behind a chamber full of students and Sith Lords who'd witnessed something unprecedented. A being who discussed dark and light side philosophy, as if both were equally inadequate approximations of true power. The tomb's entrance was carved to resemble a screaming face, its mouth the doorway to darkness, both literal and metaphorical. Ancient Sith script promised power to the worthy and madness to all others. ANOS read the inscription with interest. Melodramatic but effective psychological warfare. Set proper expectations before the trial even begins. He stepped through the entrance. Let's see what your ancient Sith can teach me. The darkness swallowed them, and the tomb's trials began. In the orientation chamber above, Darth Traya settled into a meditation pose, extending her perception into the tomb to observe what would happen when immovable force met unstoppable object, when the Demon King faced the accumulated darkness of Sith history. Overseer, she said quietly, record everything. This encounter will either validate the Sith philosophy entirely or force us to reconsider assumptions we've held for millennia. The Overseer activated recording equipment, hands trembling slightly despite years of conditioning that should have eliminated fear. Because deep in her heart, beneath layers of dark side indoctrination, she suspected that the galaxy was about to watch a being who transcended the light-dark dichotomy tear down assumptions, both sides considered fundamental truths. And truth, once revealed, could never be unsealed. The Tomb of Naga Sadow was a cathedral of malice carved into living stone. Corridors twisted at angles that offended geometry, walls bearing murals that depicted atrocities committed in the name of power, floors slick with something that might have been condensation, but felt too viscous, too aware asterisk. The dark side saturated everything, not just present but concentrated asterisk, as if centuries of Sith rituals had distilled pure malevolence into the architecture itself. Mitra felt it immediately, a pressure against her mind like fingers probing for weaknesses. The tomb wanted in, wanted to show her fears, exploit doubts, corrupt intentions. Standard dark side manipulation, elevated to art form through age and accumulated power. It's testing us, she said quietly, one hand on her concealed lightsaber. Trying to find vulnerabilities. It's trying to find your asterisk vulnerabilities, ANOS corrected, walking deeper into the tomb with casual confidence. I'm just confusing it. The tomb's consciousness, such as it is, can't properly perceive me. I'm like a blind spot in its awareness, something it knows exists but cannot fully comprehend. They rounded a corner and found the first chamber, a vast circular room with a single throne at its center. Seated on that throne was a figure in ancient Sith armor, its eye sockets glowing with spectral fire. The spirit of Naga Sadow, or a close approximation thereof. "Who dares enter my tomb?" the spirit demanded, its voice resonating with dark side energy that made the walls vibrate. "Who seeks the secrets of the ancient Sith?" "A curious visitor," ANOS replied pleasantly. "I'm researching this galaxy's approach to power and philosophy. Your reputation suggested you might have insights worth examining." The spirit leaned forward, its spectral gaze trying to pierce ANOS and finding nothing to grasp. "You are strange, neither light nor dark, neither living nor dead. What are you?" "Demon King, currently between universes," ANOS said. "I destroyed the gods of my world, rebuilt its power structure, then got pulled through dimensional anomaly into your galaxy. Now I'm trying to understand whether your Sith philosophy offers genuine wisdom or just cruelty disguised as strength." The spirit was silent for a long moment, apparently processing the unprecedented nature of this visitor. Finally, it said, "The trials will determine your worth. Survive, and I will share knowledge that has corrupted Jedi masters and driven lesser beings to madness. Fail, and your essence will join the thousands who have died in these corridors." "What are the trials?" Mitra asked. "3 chambers," the spirit intoned. "The trial of fear, where you face your deepest terrors. The trial of ambition, where you confront what you most desire and would sacrifice to obtain it. And the trial of truth, where all deceptions, including those you tell yourself, are stripped away, leaving only what you truly are." "Psychological warfare," ANOS observed. "Elegant, really. Use people's own minds against them, let their internal conflicts do the work of elimination. Much more efficient than physical traps." He looked at the spirit directly. "What happens if we refuse to engage with the trial's premises, if we recognize them as manipulation and simply walk through?" The spirit's laughter was cold and sharp. "Many have tried such wisdom. Their corpses litter the corridors. The trials are not optional, they asterisk are the tomb. You cannot walk through without engaging, any more than you can walk through stone walls." "Can I?" ANOS asked and gestured casually. The wall to their left simply asterisk ceased to exist asterisk. Not destroyed, not blasted apart. It unmade itself, reality rewriting to accommodate ANOS's will. Beyond the wall lay another chamber, bypassing whatever the first trial had been. The spirit rose from its throne in shock. "Impossible. The trials are bound to the tomb structure through ancient Sith sorcery. You cannot." "I just did," ANOS interrupted. "Your sorcery is impressive, but ultimately it's just another form of force manipulation. And force manipulation follows rules, which means it can be understood, adapted to, or simply overwritten by sufficient power." He looked at Mitra. "Though that's cheating. If you want to experience the trials properly, I can engage with them." Mitra was torn. Part of her wanted to avoid the trials entirely. She'd felt the dark side's seductive whisper enough times to know its dangers. But another part, the part that had followed Revan into war against the Council's wishes, recognized that understanding required confrontation. "Let's do the trials," she said finally. "Properly. I need to see what they reveal, not just skip past them." ANOS nodded approvingly. "Good choice. Running from challenges is how you create vulnerabilities that enemies exploit later." He turned back to the spirit. "We accept your trials. Show us what ancient Sith wisdom looks like." The chamber dissolved around them, reality shifting as the tomb's consciousness engaged fully with its new subjects. Mitra found herself alone in a familiar corridor. the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, but wrong. The walls were cracked, lightsabers lay scattered on the floor, and everywhere she looked she saw bodies. Jedi Masters, Knights, Padawans, all dead, their faces frozen in expressions of betrayal and horror. And standing at the corridor's end, wearing Revan's mask and robes, was herself. "This is what you fear," her dark reflection said, voice distorted by the mask. "That you're no different from him. That following Revan to war corrupted you completely. That the Council was right to exile you. That you're one bad decision away from becoming what you fought against." The vision shifted. Now Mitra saw herself on a throne built from corpses, wielding a crimson lightsaber, surrounded by kneeling Sith apprentices. Dark side corruption had twisted her features, but her eyes were still her own, conscious and aware of what she'd become, unable to stop or change. "You tell yourself you stayed light," the dark reflection continued. "That you were different from Malak, from the other Jedi who fell. But you know the truth. You felt the thrill of battle, the satisfaction of decisive action, the contempt for the Council's weakness. Those aren't light side emotions." Mitra's hand moved to her lightsaber, but she stopped herself. "This is manipulation. The tomb showing me fears to break my resolve." "Does that make them less true?" her reflection challenged. "You walked the line between light and dark. You survived, but survival isn't victory, it's just delayed failure. Eventually, everyone falls. It's only a matter of time." In another part of the trial, ANOS stood in a chamber filled with corpses he recognized, friends from his first life as Demon King. Misfit Ilirogu, his mother reincarnated, who'd loved him unconditionally despite knowing what he'd been. Sasha Necron, fierce warrior who'd become his trusted companion. Ray Gransdori, the human mage who'd bridged the gap between species. All dead, their bodies torn apart, and standing over them was himself, the Demon King of tyranny in his full terrible glory, crimson eyes burning with power unchecked by compassion or restraint. "This is what you truly are," his darker self said, voice carrying the weight of millennia. "A monster pretending to be civilized. You destroyed your world once, and you'll destroy this one too. It's inevitable. Power like yours always corrupts, always destroys everything it touches." The scene shifted. ANOS saw himself conquering the Star Wars galaxy, Coruscant burning, Jedi temples reduced to ash, entire species subjugated or eliminated. And at the center of it all, he sat on a throne of worlds, absolute in power, absolute in isolation, having destroyed everything he'd claimed to want to protect. "You can't help yourself," his reflection continued. "You're drawn to conflict, to challenges, to proving your strength. That's why you really came to this galaxy, not to learn but to conquer, to find something strong enough to challenge you, or failing that, to break everything until boredom kills what power couldn't." ANOS examined the vision critically. "Adequate psychological manipulation. You've identified a genuine fear, that my power makes genuine connections impossible, that I'll always be separated from others by the chasm of capability, that eventually my strength will corrupt despite my intentions." "So you admit it's true," his reflection said. "I admit it's a risk," ANOS corrected. "But fear of corruption isn't the same as corruption itself. The difference between wisdom and cowardice is recognizing danger versus being paralyzed by it." He stepped toward his darker self. "I've been the monster you're showing me. I've destroyed worlds, killed millions, become so terrible that even my allies feared me. But I chose to come back from that, chose to be more than pure destruction." "Choice is an illusion," the reflection countered. "You're what you are. Power of your magnitude cannot be restrained indefinitely. Eventually, I'll make mistakes," ANOS interrupted. "I'll hurt people I don't mean to hurt, make decisions that cause suffering I didn't anticipate. That's inevitable when operating at scales where individual choices affect billions." His voice became firm. "But the answer isn't to avoid power or to pretend it doesn't exist. The answer is to remain conscious, self-critical, willing to acknowledge and correct errors, to be strong enough to accept your own fallibility. He walked directly into his darker self, and the reflection shattered like glass. The trial recognized truth when confronted by it. Fear acknowledged loses its power. That was the lesson the tomb had never learned, because Sith philosophy taught embracing fear and wielding it as a weapon, not transcending it entirely. Mitra, still facing her own dark reflection, heard ANOS' words echoing through the trial space. The tomb's chambers were connected, trials overlapping, so that each participant could learn from the other. "I'm afraid of falling," Mitra admitted to her reflection. "Afraid that one day I'll cross a line I can't come back from. But that fear," she paused, understanding crystallizing, "that fear means I'm still making conscious choices. The moment I stop being afraid of corruption is the moment I should actually worry." Her dark reflection smiled, but it was no longer menacing. "You're learning. Fear isn't the enemy, complacency is. The Jedi who fall are the ones who stop questioning themselves, who become certain they're incapable of darkness. You've never had that certainty." "No," Mitra agreed, "and maybe that's my strength, not my weakness." The trial dissolved, recognizing another truth spoken. The second chamber showed them what they most desired. For Mitra, it was simple. Revan, unmasked, whole, standing before her without the weight of war and darkness between them. The Jedi who'd been her teacher, her commander, her friend before everything went wrong. "I can give him back to you," the tomb whispered, its voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Use the dark side, truly use it, not just touch it cautiously, and you could find him. Wherever he is in this galaxy, whatever he's become, you could reach him, save him, restore what was lost." The vision showed her possibilities, tracking Revan through dark side meditation, techniques the Jedi forbidden, using Sith rituals to pierce the veil between known and unknown regions, sacrificing others to fuel the power needed to accomplish what seemed impossible. "What would you give to save him?" the tomb asked. "How many would you sacrifice? 10, 100, 1,000,000? Where does your compassion end and your desire begin?" Mitra stared at the vision of Revan, so close, so impossible. "I want to save him," she admitted quietly, "but not at the cost of becoming what we fought against. Revan fell because he believed the ends justified any means. I won't make that mistake." "So you'll abandon him?" the tomb challenged. "Prove your weakness through inaction. Choose your precious principles over genuine loyalty." "No," Mitra said firmly. "I'll find another way. A way that doesn't require sacrificing innocence to fuel dark rituals. It might take longer, might be harder, but you'll feel virtuous while he suffers," the tomb finished mockingly. "But I'll remain who I am," Mitra countered. "And that person is someone Revan would actually want to be saved by, not some corrupted version wearing my face." The vision of Revan smiled, proud, genuine. "That's the right answer," he said, voice carrying none of the tomb's malevolence. "The only asterisk answer. Don't lose yourself trying to save others. I made that mistake." He began to fade. "Find me if you can, but find me as you asterisk, not as some dark side reflection." For ANOS, the trial of ambition showed something unexpected. Not conquest or power. He had those already, but connection. The vision showed him his friends from his original world, transported to this galaxy. Misfit, Sasha, Rey, all the people who'd made his second life meaningful, who'd taught him that being the Demon King could mean protecting rather than dominating. "I can bring them here," the tomb whispered. "Use Sith sorcery, manipulate the dimensional barriers that pulled you through, and you could open a permanent gateway. Never be alone again. Have your true companions at your side as you explore this galaxy." The temptation was real. ANOS missed them, not out of weakness, but because genuine bonds had been his greatest achievement in his second life. Learning to value others not as subordinates or assets, but as equals and friends. What would you sacrifice to see them again? The tomb pressed. This galaxy is full of force-sensitive beings you could use as fuel for such a ritual. Thousands could die to bring back dozens you actually care about. Isn't that mathematics? Isn't that rational? The vision showed specific methods. Ancient Sith rituals requiring mass sacrifice. Techniques that would tear open dimensional barriers but destabilize entire star systems. Power drawn from suffering on such scale that millions would die screaming. No, ANOS said simply. No, the tomb seemed surprised. You wouldn't even consider. I spent my first life treating people as means to ends, ANOS interrupted. Killing thousands to achieve goals I deemed important. It worked, but it also created a world where everyone feared me, where genuine connection became impossible because nobody could see past my power to the person wielding it. He looked at the vision of his friends. They taught me better, taught me that bonds formed through mutual respect are stronger than hierarchies maintained through fear. But they're not here, asterisk, the tomb argued. In this galaxy you're alone. Wouldn't it be better to corrupt my purpose by embracing the very methods I'm trying to show alternatives to? ANOS shook his head. I miss them, genuinely, but bringing them here through mass murder would dishonor everything they taught me. They'd be ashamed of what I'd become. The vision of Misfit smiled at him. You've grown so much, she said, her voice carrying the warmth he remembered. I'm proud of you, ANOS. Keep growing, keep learning. You don't need us there to be who you've become. The vision faded, and with it the trial's power. The final chamber was simple, an empty room with a mirror at its center. But the mirror didn't show reflections of the physical form. It showed truth, what each person actually was beneath all deceptions, including self-deception. Mitra approached the mirror cautiously, afraid of what she'd see. Would it show her as corrupted, as weak, as the failure the Council had implied she was? Instead, it showed her as she was, a Jedi Knight who'd walked between light and dark not through corruption but through genuine understanding. Someone who'd seen the flaws in both philosophies and refused to be bound completely by either. Scarred by war, yes, but not broken. Changed, but not corrupted. And beneath it all, a core of genuine compassion. Not the detached, philosophical compassion the Jedi preached, but real, messy, human caring for the people she fought beside and the innocents she protected. You are neither light nor dark, the mirror whispered. You are something the Force has rarely produced, a being who chose their own path instead of accepting the dichotomy presented. The Jedi fear you because you prove their restrictions unnecessary. The Sith despise you because you prove their corruption optional. Mitra stared at her reflection, seeing truth she'd never fully acknowledged. I thought I was broken. That surviving when so many fell meant something was wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with you, the mirror replied. You simply grew beyond the simple categories both sides used to organize the universe. That's not failure, it's evolution. ANOS approached the mirror next, curious what truth it would reveal about a being from another universe entirely. What he saw was complicated. The mirror showed him as the demon king of tyranny, absolute power made manifest, capable of destroying concepts and remaking reality itself. But it also showed the person beneath that power, someone who'd been lonely for millennia, who'd built walls of strength because vulnerability had proven catastrophic in his first life, who'd reincarnated specifically to learn whether power could coexist with genuine connection. You are a paradox, the mirror said, immensely powerful yet deliberately restrained, capable of tyranny yet choosing compassion. You've mastered strength but you're still learning wisdom, and you're terrified, absolutely terrified, that your power will eventually destroy everything you care about, that history will repeat and you'll become the monster again despite all your growth. ANOS studied his reflection silently. The truth was uncomfortable but undeniable. Yes, he admitted finally, I'm afraid, not of external threats, those I can handle, but of my own nature, of the possibility that my fundamental character is destructive and everything else is just temporary control that will eventually fail. And yet, the mirror observed, that fear is what makes you different from the tyrants this galaxy has known. True monsters don't question themselves, don't doubt their righteousness, don't carry the weight of their past mistakes as lessons rather than excuses. The mirror's tone became almost gentle. You're not the demon king of tyranny anymore, ANOS Voldigoad. You're something else, something this galaxy doesn't have a name for yet. What am I then? A teacher, the mirror replied. Someone powerful enough to enforce wisdom but wise enough to question power. Someone who understands that strength without purpose is waste and purpose without strength is futility. You're what this galaxy needs, not another conqueror, not another saint, but an example that the dichotomy between light and dark is false. ANOS touched the mirror, and it shattered, not from force, but because truth acknowledged requires no further reflection. They emerged from the trials together, returning to the chamber where Naga Sadow's spirit waited on its throne. The ancient Sith Lord's spectral form seemed diminished somehow, as if their passage through the trials had weakened it. Remarkable, the spirit admitted. You both confronted truth and emerged intact. Most who reach this point are broken by what they learn about themselves, or corrupted by the knowledge the tomb offers. It leaned forward. What did you learn? That fear of corruption is healthy, Mitra said. That choosing your own path instead of accepting false dichotomies is strength, not weakness. That I'm neither the perfect Jedi the Council wanted nor the fallen knight they feared, but something different entirely. And you, the spirit asked ANOS. That I'm still learning, ANOS replied. That absolute power doesn't mean absolute certainty, and that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's prerequisite for genuine growth. He looked at the spirit directly. And I learned that your Sith philosophy, while containing more practical wisdom than the Jedi admit, is still fundamentally incomplete. You teach embracing darkness as strength, but you don't teach transcending darkness entirely. The spirit was silent for a long moment. Finally, the knowledge you've earned is yours. The techniques of the ancient Sith, the secrets of power that have corrupted lesser beings, the wisdom accumulated across millennia. It gestured. And holocrons materialized around the chamber. Data storage devices containing concentrated Sith lore. I don't want them, ANOS said, surprising even Mitra. What? The spirit seemed genuinely shocked. You passed the trials. The knowledge is yours by right. Knowledge gained through suffering, ANOS interrupted. Knowledge that requires cruelty to obtain. Knowledge built on the corpses of those who failed. That's not wisdom. That's just information covered in blood. He turned toward the exit. I came here to understand your dark side philosophy. I did. It's more pragmatic than the Jedi's light side, more honest about power's importance, but ultimately just as limited. Then what would you do? The spirit demanded. If both light and dark are inadequate, what alternative exists? ANOS paused at the threshold. Synthesis. Genuine integration of both philosophies' strengths while discarding their weaknesses. Teaching beings to be powerful and compassionate, strong and wise, capable of destruction and committed to protection. He looked back at the spirit one last time. That's what I built in my world. That's what I'll teach in this one if anyone's willing to learn. The Jedi won't accept your teaching, the spirit warned. The Sith will try to corrupt or kill you. You'll be opposed by both sides. Good, ANOS said simply. Opposition from those invested in broken systems is proof you're threatening their comfortable failures. He smiled slightly. Besides, I don't need their approval. I just need a few students willing to learn, and time to prove that my methods work better than theirs. They ascended from the tomb, leaving behind ancient darkness and accumulated Sith wisdom. Behind them, Naga Sadow's spirit watched their departure with something approaching respect. A demon king who rejects power offered freely, it mused to the empty chamber. Either the wisest being to enter this tomb in millennia or the most foolish. Time will reveal which. When they emerged, they found the academy in chaos. News of ANOS's casual dismissal of Sith traditions had spread. Students whispered of a stranger who'd caught a lightsaber blade, absorbed Force lightning, and dismissed ancient wisdom as inadequate. Some saw opportunity, a potential new teacher offering alternatives to the brutal Sith path. Others saw threat, someone who challenged the very foundations their worldview was built upon. Darth Traya waited for them at the tomb's entrance, her blind gaze somehow conveying both respect and calculation. "You rejected Naga Sadow's knowledge," she said without preamble. "That takes either remarkable principle or remarkable arrogance." "Both," ANOS admitted freely. "I'm principled enough to recognize that knowledge gained through suffering perpetuates suffering, and arrogant enough to believe I can develop better methods than your ancient Sith accomplished." "And now," Traya asked, "where does the Demon King go from here? Back to the Jedi to share what you've learned, to some neutral world to establish your own academy, or," her voice became sharp with interest, "to the Republic Senate to see how this galaxy's true power brokers operate?" "None of those," ANOS replied. "Now I go to the place where your light and dark sides have fought their most destructive battles, where the consequences of your endless conflict are written in planetary devastation and billions of dead." He looked directly at her despite her blindness. "I'm going to Malachor V." Even Traya, Lord of Betrayal, Master of Manipulation, recoiled slightly at that name. "Malachor V is a wound in the Force," she said carefully. "A planet where Revan activated a superweapon that killed millions in an instant, where the mass shadow generator tore the world apart and created a gravitational anomaly that consumes anything approaching it. Nothing survives there. Not Jedi, not Sith, not even droids. It's death incarnate. Which makes it the perfect place to evaluate this galaxy's power at its most extreme," ANOS replied. "If I'm going to teach alternatives to your broken systems, I need to understand what those systems can accomplish at their peak, both creative and destructive." "You'll die," Mitra said quietly. "I was there when the mass shadow generator activated, felt thousands of deaths simultaneously. The echoes are still there, still consuming, still hungry. Even I couldn't return without." "Without me," ANOS interrupted gently. "You couldn't return alone, but you're not alone anymore." He placed a hand on her shoulder, the first time he'd initiated physical contact with her, and she felt the sheer solidity of his presence, the certainty that radiated from him like heat. "I've walked through death itself, Mitra. A planetary wound won't consume me, and with me there, it won't consume you either." "This is madness," Traya said, but there was a note of admiration in her voice. "Even I haven't dared Malachor since the mass shadow generator activated. It's the one place in the galaxy where the Force itself has been so damaged that even ancient Sith techniques fail." "Then it's exactly where I need to go," ANOS said. "Because if I can heal a wound that even your most powerful Force users can't approach, I'll have proven that my power truly does transcend your light-dark dichotomy, that there are alternatives to the systems that created such devastation." He began walking toward the Academy's hangar bay, Mitra following after a moment's hesitation. Darth Traya watched them go, her mind racing with implications. "He's going to try to heal Malachor V," she whispered to herself. "Either he'll succeed and prove he's beyond anything this galaxy has encountered, or he'll fail and be consumed, solving the problem of his existence entirely." She smiled behind her mask. "Either outcome advances my purposes. How delightful." But deep down, beneath layers of Sith philosophy and nihilistic calculation, Traya felt something she hadn't experienced in decades: genuine uncertainty about the future. Because the Demon King was right. He was beyond her ability to predict, manipulate, or control. And beings beyond control were either opportunities or apocalypses. Time would reveal which ANOS Voldigoad proved to be. Aboard the Ebonhawk Roman II*, as they plotted course for Malachor V, Master Zezkai L confronted ANOS with barely contained fury. You rejected Sith teachings, dismissed ancient wisdom, and now you're leading Mitra into the most dangerous location in the known galaxy, he said, his scarred face twisted with anger. The Council was right to be wary of you. You're not a teacher. You're a catastrophe waiting to happen. Perhaps, ANOS agreed calmly, but I'm a catastrophe with purpose. That's more than your Jedi or Sith can claim. He looked at the Jedi Master evenly. Your order has maintained its philosophy for 25,000 years. In that time, how much has the galaxy improved? How many wars have you prevented? How many species have you saved from extinction? How many Force-sensitive children have grown up without fear of being stolen by Jedi or murdered by Sith? Zez-Kai-El had no answer, because they both knew the truth. The Jedi maintained status quo, the Sith disrupted it, and the endless cycle benefited no one except those invested in perpetual conflict. I'm going to offer an alternative, ANOS continued. A way to be powerful without being cruel, compassionate without being weak. It won't be easy, and most will reject it because it demands more than either light or dark requires. But for those willing to learn, he smiled, I'll show them what true strength looks like. The ship entered hyperspace, carrying the Demon King toward a wound in the Force that had consumed thousands and defeated even legendary Jedi Masters. And on Coruscant, in the Jedi Temple, the Council convened emergency session to discuss what should be done about ANOS Voldigoad, the being who threatened to unmake the very foundations their civilization was built upon. Not through conquest or corruption, but through teaching, which they were beginning to realize might be the most dangerous threat of all. 6 months after ANOS Voldigoad descended into the Star Wars galaxy, the changes he'd set in motion were impossible to ignore. Malachor V, the wound in the Force that had consumed everything for years, was healing. Not quickly, planetary-scale devastation couldn't be erased overnight, but measurably, undeniably. The gravitational anomaly had stabilized. The screaming Force echoes had quieted to whispers, and most remarkably, survivors had begun returning to salvage what could be saved. ANOS had stood at the wound's epicenter for 72 hours, channeling power that made Sith Lords and Jedi Masters alike reconsider every assumption about what was possible. He hadn't destroyed the wound. That would have been crude, leaving new damage in its wake. Instead, he'd healed it, knitting the Force's torn fabric through sheer will and understanding of how universal energies functioned. Mitra had watched, protected by his presence, as reality itself rewove around them. She'd felt the planet's agony transform into something approaching peace, and in that moment, she'd understood what ANOS had been trying to teach. That power used with precision and compassion could accomplish what millennia of Force tradition claimed impossible. Word spread rapidly. The being who'd caught lightsaber blades and absorbed Force lightning had healed a planetary wound. He'd rejected ancient Sith wisdom not from weakness, but from having already surpassed what it could teach. And most disturbing to both Jedi and Sith, he was offering to share his methods with anyone willing to learn. 53 students came first, Force sensitives from across the galaxy who'd heard rumors of an alternative to the eternal light-dark dichotomy. Some were failed Jedi, others were Sith who'd rejected the constant backstabbing. Many were simply individuals who discovered Force abilities and sought guidance without swearing loyalty to either faction. ANOS established his academy on Dantooine, in sight of the ruined Jedi enclave, a deliberate statement that new growth could emerge from old failures. The structure was simple. Students learned combat alongside ethics, power alongside purpose, destruction alongside protection. Those who proved themselves capable graduated as something unprecedented in galactic history. Force users who embraced both light and dark aspects while being *bound by neither, wielding strength through conscious choice rather than philosophical constraint. The Jedi Council condemned it as heresy. The Sith called it weakness disguised as innovation, but neither could deny the results. ANOS' students didn't fall to corruption like Revan's followers, didn't become rigid like traditional Jedi. They simply worked asterisk, protecting communities, resolving conflicts, demonstrating that power could be wielded ethically without requiring suppression or indulgence of emotion. Mitra became his first graduate, a Jedi who'd walked through darkness and emerged not corrupted but transformed, stronger for understanding both extremes, wiser for choosing synthesis over supremacy. She took the title Sentinel of Balance, and beneath her teaching, others learned to walk the line between passion and peace. Darth Traya watched from the shadows, her nihilistic philosophy challenged by ANOS' very existence. He'd proven that the Force wasn't an inevitable prison of predetermined patterns. It was merely one power system among many, and beings sufficiently strong could operate beyond its constraints entirely. It frustrated her, infuriated her, and somewhere deep within her cynical heart, gave her something she'd thought long dead: hope that perhaps her war against the Force itself wasn't the only path to liberation. The Jedi Order fractured slowly. Some masters, like Kavar, acknowledged that ANOS' philosophy addressed genuine problems their tradition had failed to solve. Others, like Atris, saw only threat and doubled down on orthodoxy. The debate raged across Jedi enclaves. Could they learn from this outsider without losing their identity, or was any compromise the first step toward falling? And on Coruscant, in the Republic Senate, politicians recognized that someone had emerged who could end conflicts they'd thought eternal. Whether that was opportunity or threat remained subject to intense debate, but everyone agreed. The galaxy had fundamentally changed the day the Demon King descended. ANOS himself remained focused on teaching, on demonstrating that wisdom could be shared without requiring dogma, that strength could be cultivated without demanding cruelty. He missed his original world, missed the friends who taught him to value genuine bonds over hierarchies of power. But here, in this strange galaxy bound by the Force's incomplete philosophies, he'd found new purpose. He would show them what true power looked like, not domination or submission, not light or dark, but conscious choice wielded by beings strong enough to carry responsibility for their actions. It would take time, generations perhaps, but ANOS had died and been reborn before. He understood patience. And across the galaxy, in academies both Jedi and Sith, young Force sensitives looked at the stars and wondered, if the Demon King could transcend the dichotomy that had governed civilization for millennia, what else might be possible? What other limitations were merely accepted rather than inevitable? The answer, ANOS knew, would reshape the galaxy more thoroughly than any Sith conquest or Jedi reformation ever could. Because ideas, once released, could never be sealed away. And the most dangerous idea of all was that power and compassion weren't opposing forces. They were complementary strengths waiting to be unified by those brave enough to reject comfortable limitations. The Demon King had descended into the Star Wars galaxy. And whether the galaxy realized it yet or not, it would never be the same.